Chapter 300. As she spoke, her eyes were filled with hatred as she looked at Ming-Shi, as if she was looking at a great enemy. Nonsense, we spent so much effort to sneak into bewitching Wind Island just to find your damned fiancé and that brat Feng Yanran. We took so many risks. What right do you have to talk about Senior Ming-Shi like that? Ajur glared at Mildy with an unfriendly expression. He originally thought that Mildy wasn't too annoying. Although she was a little spoiled, she wasn't stupid. He didn't expect that this woman's IQ would plummet when it came to her fiancé. She was no different from a lunatic. You're all in this together. You didn't bring O'Brien back on purpose. Otherwise, why did the three of you come back but O'Brien is missing? Why didn't you guys get into trouble? As the captain, shouldn't you protect your team members? Mildy didn't listen at all. Her heart ached so much that she couldn't breathe when she thought about how O'Brien had disappeared in such a big storm. That was the man she had wanted to marry since she was young, the man she had loved since she was a child. Ming-Shi only looked up indifferently at Mildy's accusation. If you really think so, you can report me to the teacher when you go back. If you keep thinking that you're right, I'm willing to accept any punishment. Bad person. Feng Wu held the little bun in her arms and glared at Mildy. She deeply felt the malice towards Ming-Shi from this woman. It wasn't Ming-Shi's fault, but Mildy still scolded Ming-Shi. Bad person, bad person. The girl's vocabulary was so limited that she couldn't think of a more powerful curse word. Bad person. The little bun loved his mother the most. Feeling the anger from his little mother, the little guy turned his little head and scolded her. Although the little bun didn't understand what that word meant at all. Feng Wu kissed her son in praise. She felt that the little bun was very smart and needed to be praised. Ajur, Mo Gue, and Ming-Shi, is it really okay for you to teach your children this way? What right do you have to criticize me? If it wasn't for you, my O'Brien would definitely be fine. Mildy had already turned into a mad dog. What does this have to do with Xiao Wu? This time, even Mo Gue couldn't remain silent. Xiao Wu was his friend. At this time, he naturally had to stand on her side. Mildy said confidently, "How is it not her fault? She must be too weak." Senior Ming-Shi only cared about protecting her, so he didn't have time to save O'Brien. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that her guess was correct. As she spoke, the hatred in her eyes towards Feng Wu became more obvious. "You're unreasonable," Ajur said to her. "If it wasn't for Xiao Wu, we might have all died in that underground palace. Your Olian wouldn't have just gone missing. He might have died." Humph. Mildy clearly didn't believe him. "Let's go to the seaside and look for the tricolor flower." Ming-Shi didn't pay any more attention to the clearly delirious Mildy. Compared to arguing with Mildy, he was more concerned about the issue of collecting the tricolor flower. Don't go. If you don't make things clear, don't even think about leaving." Mildy yelled like a madwoman. Fortunately, this was the cave where Mo Gue and the others lived alone. No other villagers came over. The villagers who had lived in the nearby caves had long returned to their homes after the sea calmed down. Now, only Mo Gue and the others lived in the cave, so they didn't have to worry about being heard no matter how loud they yelled. As she spoke, she ran to the entrance of the cave and blocked it. No matter what, she wouldn't let them pass and insisted that Ming-Shi and the others give an explanation. "What are you trying to do?" Ajur glared impatiently at Mildy, who seemed to be on the verge of going crazy. "Go and find Olian. I believe that Olian isn't dead. He must be somewhere waiting for us to save him. Go and find him again. You must find him. The sea is vast. Where do you want us to go to find him?" Ming-Shi frowned slightly. A trace of impatience flashed across the depths of his eyes. "I don't care. You must find him. If you can't find him, you shouldn't have come back," Mildy said confidently. It was as if it was natural for all of them to do so much for her fiancé. "If you want to find him so badly, then go and find him yourself. We won't stop you." Mo Gue couldn't stand this woman for a long time. She usually looked like a normal person. Why did she become so crazy when it came to her fiancé? Indeed, one couldn't judge a book by its cover. Olian's action of leaving the team without permission was wrong. As the team leader, I have done enough for him. I can't let him affect the mission of the rest of the team. What he meant was that the mission was more important. He had already found Olian once, so he wouldn't go a second time. Because they knew that Mildy only cared about O'Brien, everyone had a tacit understanding not to mention the topic of Feng Yenran. After that, no matter how loudly Mildy roared or pitifully begged, it did not arouse the slightest bit of sympathy from everyone. Everyone directly ignored her and went out to look for the tricolor flower. As for Mildy, she could do whatever she wanted. The group walked to the seaside. Not far away was a large village. Emogue and the others were already familiar with the villagers and would greet them when they met. The tricolor flower bloomed in the sea. If they wanted to find it, they had to go into the sea. Everyone cast a waterproof barrier around themselves. However, the barrier was condensed with mana and could only last for 3 hours. After that, they would have to come out of the sea due to the lack of mana. Because Feng Wu was still holding the child, although they could leave the child to Little White, they couldn't let Little White stay here alone to look after the child. So, the Feng Wu girl was left behind while the others jumped into the sea to look for the flower. Ming Shi, Ajur, Emogue, and Riot, the 4 men, went into the sea together. There weren't any large water-type magical beasts in the sea near the Three Leaves Island. Instead, there were many strange-looking fish. These fish swam around in the water happily. After Ming Shi and the others went into the sea, they split up to look for the tricolor flower. Before Ming Shi and the others came back, only one person could go into the sea to look for the flower. Of course, it would take a long time for one person to find it. It was already very difficult to find 3 flowers. Seeing that there were 4 people in the sea, Riot finally regained his confidence in completing the mission. Before Ming Shi and the others came back, Riot was the one under the most pressure. Before Ming Shi left, he told him to take the other 2 to do the mission. He felt that it was his responsibility. Although he tried very hard to do what Ming Shi asked him to do, his teammates were too good at tricking people and greatly affected the speed of the mission. Chapter 301. Needless to say, Mildy was the one who cheated her teammates the most. Ever since she came to the Three Leaves Island, she did nothing but stare at the sea, waiting for her fiancé to return. As for the remaining 2 men, a baby, and a nanny beast, they naturally couldn't go into the sea together to protect little Yi. Although the Holy Mother was protecting him, there were many merchants coming and going on the Three Leaves Island. They didn't feel at ease leaving a baby with a nanny beast. In order to protect little Ye's safety, one of them would stay behind to look after the baby while the other went to the sea to look for flowers. That way, they wouldn't be able to complete the mission before Ming Shi and the others returned. Riot blamed himself for this, feeling that it was all because he didn't do his job well enough. He was too capable and couldn't complete the mission given to him by his seniors. In order to make up for his mistake, Riot looked for flowers especially seriously. The others were also seriously searching, but after 2 hours, they only found 2. After 2 hours, Ming Shi was fine, but the other 3 weren't. Ajur was a fire mage and didn't like to stay in the water. His mana would drain very quickly if he stayed in the water. Because of this, even though Ajur was much stronger than Emogue and Riot, he still felt that his mana was drained and needed to go ashore to rest. In the sea, no one would really stay in the water for 3 hours and only come out when their mana was depleted. The sea wasn't a safe place. Whether it was during a mission, they had to preserve a certain amount of fighting power. If they came out after their mana was depleted, wouldn't they only be waiting for death when they encountered danger? The 4 men came out of the sea and saw Feng Wu sitting on a big rock with the baby in her arms and playing. As for the omnipotent nanny beast, Xiao Bai, it was cooking fish by the sea. Not only fish, but also lobsters and crabs. Whitey, your cooking is getting better and better. Ajur sat down beside the fire and took a crispy golden grilled fish from the grill. He praised after taking a bite out of the grill. Whitey's large eyes narrowed. It seemed that it was very happy to be praised. Compared to its owner, it is indeed much better. Mo clearly knew that the Fengwu girl's dishes were all dark cuisine. At this moment, Fengwu walked over with several tricolored flowers in her hand. Where did this come from? Riot was shocked. They had only found 2 after searching for so long, but Fengwu had found 7 or 8. This was illogical. A friend gave it to me, Fengwu said. Just now, when Fengwu was waiting on the shore with the baby in her arms, she saw several small fish magical beasts. After chatting with them for a while, a few more small magical fish appeared in the Fengwu girl's circle of friends. The little fish knew that Fengwu was looking for the tricolor flower, so the clever little magical fish gave Fengwu 1 tricolor flower for each beast. That was how she got 7 flowers. The problem that had troubled him for so many days was solved so easily by the Fengwu girl. Riot felt as if he had been shot in the knee by an arrow. He knelt down in front of the Fengwu girl. After eating a seafood feast, everyone discussed and decided to rest for a day before returning. "Oh no! Oh no! Mildy took our boat away," Riot said as he ran into the cave. "Oh no! Mildy took our boat away." What? That woman really dared. Ajur was so angry that he almost laughed. The crew and the boat were all hired by Ming Shi. The one who paid was also Ming Shi. Back then, Ming Shi had only bought another boat to sail to Bewitching Wind Island because he was worried about the safety of the crew. The original boat was used by Riot and the others. That boat had everything, and the captain was very experienced. If they wanted to return to land, they would need the captain's guidance. They didn't think that Mildy would take their only boat away for the sake of her fiancé who didn't even have her in his heart. That woman's actions completely angered everyone. Damn woman, I knew she wasn't a good person. She's so selfish. Emogue was so angry that he almost spat out blood. By the way, how did you find out that the boat was missing? Ming Shi asked. Riot shook his head in embarrassment. I didn't find it. An uncle in the village found it. He knew that we hadn't left yet and was afraid that someone had stolen our boat. That's why he came to report it. Someone came to report it. After asking a few villagers, they said that someone saw Mildy get on the boat alone. That's how I found out. Ming Shi nodded in understanding. It's fine. We can just find another boat. If she wants to take it away, let her. Mildy and her fiancé are both bad people. One of them is willing to do anything for a woman, even going to Red Skull's lair. The other is even crazier. For a man who doesn't love her, she's not afraid to go against the whole world, Ajur said with a sigh. Bad people. Fengwu nodded in agreement with Ajur's words. Let's rest for a while. We'll go to Trade Island tomorrow and buy another boat. There should be a boat going to Trade Island on 3 Leaves Island, right? Ming Shi said. There is, but I don't know if there's a boat going tomorrow. The boats on the island would only go out to other islands on certain days. They wouldn't go out at other times. How about this? I'll go ask the villagers tomorrow. If there's a boat tomorrow, that'll be great. If there isn't, we'll think about what to do. Let's see if we can play for a few more days or find another way to get to Trade Island. Mo Gue's idea was unanimously approved. Everyone found a place to lie down and rest, waiting for the next day to decide. The next day, Mo Gue went to visit the villagers and asked when the boat to Trade Island would depart. He didn't expect that it would be 5 days later. After asking about the time, Mo Gue returned to the cave they were temporarily staying in and explained the situation to everyone. The cave was silent. What do we do now? Do we wait 5 days before leaving or find another way? Mo Gue threw this question to the team leader, Ming Shi. How about this? We'll see if we can find a passing merchant ship willing to take us. If there isn't a merchant ship, then we'll wait for the boat from 3 Leaves Island in 5 days. Of course, no one had any objections to Ming Shi's decision. After all, they had completed their mission. It didn't matter when they went back, as long as they returned before school started. Fortunately, they did find a passing merchant ship willing to take them. This ship's destination wasn't Central City, nor was it Trade Island. It was a place called Falling Jade Island. Falling Jade Island was a large island, and one of the most powerful in the outer seas. Falling Jade Island was made up of 12 small islands. Each island had an island master. In other words, there were 12 island masters on Falling Jade Island. Chapter 302. Apart from the first island master, who lived on the main island, the other 11 island masters lived on the 11 smaller islands surrounding the main island. Among the 12 island masters, 3 were archmages, 2 were swordsmen, and the other 7 were either archmages or archmages. With 12 experts guarding the island, coupled with the rich resources on Falling Jade Island, there would be many merchant ships every year. It just so happened that the merchant ship that Ming Shi and the others found was going to Falling Jade Island. They also heard that there were regular ships going to Central City from Falling Jade Island. This was good news for Ming Shi and the others. In this way, they wouldn't have to buy or hire a ship to go back. After deciding to go to Falling Jade Island, Mo Gue and the owner of the merchant ship finalized the matter. The owner didn't intend to take the money. After knowing that they were students of the Notre Dame du Starlight, the owner only asked them to lend a hand if the merchant ship was in danger. Sailing on the sea was not peaceful. Apart from the occasional water-type magical beast that might come out to attack human ships, the most important thing to guard against was the pirates. Generally, large merchant ships had connections with pirates. Every year, they had to hand over a lot of money to the pirates to ensure that they wouldn't be hijacked when they went out to sea. On the other hand, medium-sized or small merchant ships without connections couldn't find a place or didn't have enough money to make connections, so they could only hire some adventurers to help protect the safety of the goods on board. The owner of this merchant ship was called Hart. Hart was an ordinary merchant whose family hadn't been in the business for generations. As he said, he was just a little luckier than some people. Coupled with a certain degree of business acumen, he worked his way up from a small fisherman to a small owner of a small fortune. Hart was a burly man in his 50s. Judging from the power exuded from his body, he wasn't very strong. He was only a great swordsman in his 50s. It could be seen that he didn't have any talent for cultivation. Hart's personality was very straightforward and upright. He was very kind to his subordinates. Apart from Hart's own people, there was also a small mercenary team on the ship. This small mercenary team was specially hired by Hart to protect the cargo on the ship. Ming Shi and the others boarded the ship. Naturally, the group of mercenaries saw them. The mercenaries were already used to Hart's style. Under normal circumstances, as long as it was on the way, he wouldn't mind giving them a ride. In addition to Ming Shi and the others, there was also a pair of siblings and 3 adventurers in the cabin. They were all people who were on overseas missions or traveling. Because these people were all going to Falling Jade Island, and there were still many empty rooms on the ship, Hart didn't refuse them, nor did he take their money. He only asked them to help if the ship was in danger. This request was not too much, and everyone who wanted to board the ship agreed. After Ming Shi brought Feng Wu and the others onto Hart's merchant ship, he discovered that in addition to a dozen crew members, there were also more than 20 guards that Hart had brought along. Including the group of mercenaries, there were quite a lot of people on this merchant ship. Because Feng Wu was a girl and had a child, she was assigned a room alone. Ming Shi and the other 4 men were given 2 rooms. After the rooms were arranged, the ship's crew brought them to their respective rooms. Fortunately, the 3 rooms were adjacent and not far from each other. It was very convenient to find someone. After settling down, the merchant ship set off toward Jade Fall Island. The journey from 3 Leaves Island to Falling Jade Island wasn't too far. It only took 10 days by ship. In the evening, Hart asked the kitchen to prepare a meal and invited all the guests to eat in the cabin. As the host, Hart naturally sat there. "Everyone, come and sit. Don't be polite. It's fate that we met on the vast sea. Tonight, there's good wine and good food. Everyone, eat as much as you can." Hart laughed and invited Ming Shi and the others to sit down. This time, in addition to Hart and Ming Shi's group, there were also people from the mercenary group responsible for the safety of Hart and the goods. This mercenary group had more than 20 people. The leader was a sword grandmaster, and the 2 assistants were great sword masters and great magicians. Apart from these people, the remaining 20 or so people were not weak either. They were all good fighters. Apart from the 3 leaders of the mercenary group, the other members didn't come. They were all patrolling outside. "Thank you for the invitation, Boss Hart." "Thank you, Boss Hart. I'm really sorry to let Boss Hart treat us like this." The people who entered the cabin exchanged a few polite words with Hart before walking in. According to the arranged seats, everyone sat down and a maid poured wine for everyone. "Boss Hart is too polite. Let me toast to Boss Hart first." Like Ming Shi and the others, the older brother of the 2 siblings who had hitched a ride on the ship raised his glass to toast Hart. After Hart raised his glass and drank with him, Ming Shi and the 3 adventurers also toasted Hart. After everyone had toasted, the 3 leaders of the mercenary group raised their glasses and toasted Hart. The atmosphere at the banquet was very harmonious. Hart was a businessman, so he was very good at driving the conversation. Everyone chatted with each other, and the conversation was quite harmonious. This banquet was mainly to entertain the 3 leaders of the mercenary group, so Hart spent most of the time talking to them. Of course, he didn't neglect the others. "Hey, are you going to Falling Jade Island for the Sea God's tomb?" A clever and cute girl around 16 or 17 years old came to Feng Wu's side and whispered. This girl was the younger sister of the brother and sister. They were also on the 3 Leaves Island. The brother and sister were quite strong. The younger sister was a mid-level mage, while the older brother was a high-level swordmaster. Both of them were quite young. The younger sister was only in her teens, while the older brother was only around 25 years old. They could be considered young and promising. The 2 introduced themselves as nobles of Shiluo country. This time, the brother and sister were traveling overseas together. They didn't expect to hear news about the Sea God's tomb, so they found a boat to go to Falling Jade Island to participate in the exploration of the tomb. Feng Wu sat beside a jur and was eating a drumstick. She didn't expect someone to talk to her. She calmly turned her head and swallowed the drumstick in her mouth. "What Sea God's tomb?" Feng Wu blinked her big eyes, indicating that she didn't know what she was talking about. The girl widened her eyes in shock, as if she couldn't believe that there was someone who didn't know about this. "What? You don't know? Then why are you going to Falling Jade Island?" "To take a boat back to Central City," Feng Wu replied matter-of-factly, her face expressionless. Chapter 303. Don't you want to explore the Sea God's tomb? That's the tomb of a god. Won't you regret it if you return like this? The girl hadn't expected anyone to ignore the temptation of the Sea God's tomb. "Miss, can you tell us more about the Sea God's tomb?" A jur asked with a friendly smile. The girl didn't expect this handsome youth to take the initiative to speak to her. "My name is Margaret. You can just call me by my name." "There's no need to be so distant," Margaret said with a red face as she fiddled with her fingers. Emogue spat out a mouthful of wine when he heard this. "Since when were you close to a jur? How come I didn't know about this?" A jur and Margaret didn't hear Emogue's silent curses. A jur calmly called out the girl's name. "All right, Margaret. Can you tell us more about the Sea God's tomb?" Those familiar with a jur knew that he wasn't a patient person. He would only be patient when he had something in mind. Emogue knew that a jur wanted to know more about the Sea God's tomb. Since he was also curious, he didn't say anything. "Do you remember the thunderstorm a few days ago, and the eruption of tsunamis and underwater volcanoes?" Margaret asked. "Of course. I'm sure anyone who experienced it will remember it well." A jur's smile was elegant and charming. "The Sea God's tomb I'm talking about is the final resting place of a sea god. It's very hidden and protected by a magic array. Ordinary humans like us can't find it at all. However, due to the underwater volcano eruption a few days ago, the magic array protecting the Sea God's tomb was damaged. The tomb, originally hidden in the depths of the sea, was revealed to everyone. The first to discover it were the island lords of Falling Jade Island. After discovering the divine tomb, they immediately wanted to explore it. Unfortunately, even though the magic formation protecting the divine tomb had been destroyed, the passage to the divine tomb still couldn't be opened. Left with no choice, the island lords of Jade Drop Island spread the news, hoping to attract more experts to open the divine tomb. That's why my brother and I boarded Boss Hart's ship and wanted to go to Jade Fall Island. If you're not busy, why don't you stay and explore the Tomb of the Gods together? Isn't that more interesting? Margaret said with a smile. So that's how it is. We didn't know that such a big thing had happened. Ajur stroked his chin. He really didn't think that the divine tomb had anything to do with them. Speaking of which, the appearance of the tomb of the god of sin was also due to the demonic General Mie. At that time, Feng Wu's divine sword had purified a portion of the demonic power, which had also weakened the power that sealed his 7 emotions. Mie had broken the seal and regained his original nature. He had lost control of his emotions for a while, causing a great disaster to the ocean world. Although the storm had stopped due to some unknown power, it had unexpectedly led to the sea god's tomb. Feng Wu girl quietly ate her chicken drumstick. She had no interest in the sea god's tomb at all. After chatting with Margaret for a while, the banquet soon came to an end. After the banquet, everyone gathered in Ming Shi's room to begin. What do you think, Senior Ming Shi? This sea god's tomb seems very interesting. Let's go together, Mo Gue said excitedly. This was the tomb of the gods they were talking about. The chance to explore it didn't come often. It would be a shame to miss it. Riot was also looking forward to the trip. They hadn't come across anything thrilling on this trip, and even if there had been, it wouldn't have been his turn to participate. Now that the tomb of the gods was right in front of them, it would be a waste if they didn't go in. The sea god is a connate divine spirit. The tomb of a connate divine spirit isn't that easy to enter. I'm afraid we'll die as soon as we enter, Ming Shi said after some thought. Senior Ming Shi, why don't you take us in? Everyone, take care of yourselves. If you're unlucky and come out, you can't blame anyone else, Ajur persuaded Ming Shi. He had always been interested in excitement like this. Ajur is right. After we go in, we won't blame you, Senior, no matter if we live or die, Riot and Mogwai immediately agreed. No, this trip is dangerous. We've already completed our mission. There's no need to complicate matters. Don't mention it again, Ming Shi said firmly, unmoved. Ming Shi's work was different. Apart from Feng Wu, everyone else looked listless and lethargic. Ming Shi didn't pay them any mind. Instead, he wore a solemn expression. It seemed the world at sea was about to be stirred up again. In a place far away from the sea, news of the sea god's tomb's appearance was spread to the continent. Suddenly, the continent was in a frenzy. Experts were constantly making their way to Jade Fall Island through various means. All of a sudden, the various flying stations and docks were bustling with business, contributing greatly to the development of the transportation industry. Naturally, Ming Shi and the others didn't know about this. The journey to Jade Fall Island was a full 10 days. Apart from Hart's appearance on the first day, they didn't see Hart for the next few days. However, whether Hart appeared or not wasn't important to them. Everyone continued to live their own lives. Life on the ship was boring. When Feng Wu had nothing to do, she would hold Little Bun and practice walking on the deck. Little Bun could already walk stably. After finally getting rid of his reptile identity, Feng Yi became addicted to adventure. When he had nothing to do, he would have Whitey follow him around and run around the ship. Because Feng Yi was only a little over a year old, no one said anything. Occasionally, some kind-hearted people would remind Feng Wu to look after the child and make sure he didn't get hurt. On the 5th day of the voyage, an earth-shattering shriek sounded from the deck. A middle-aged beauty in a magician's robe was chasing Little Bun around. She was in her 20s, and her skin wasn't very good. Perhaps it was because she lived on the sea all year round, but there were some small spots on her face. Even though there were some blemishes, she was still an average beauty. At this moment, the beauty's eyes were bloodshot, and her face was ashen. She looked at Feng Yi as if he were her father's murderer. She chased after Feng Yi with a black staff in her hand, and a pillar of water mercilessly shot toward Feng Yi. Little Feng Yi was being carried in Whitey's arms as he ran. The little guy would grin from time to time, as if he didn't know that his life was in danger. He thought that she was playing with him. Chapter 304. The sailors and guards on the deck frowned as they watched this scene, expressing their disgust towards the woman who could be so heavy-handed towards a child. At the same time, they anxiously paid attention to the little fellow's safety. It wasn't that they didn't want to save him, but that no one would have thought that someone would do such a thing to a child. By the time they wanted to save him, they were too far away and couldn't make it in time. Thinking that this little fellow could very well die under that water pillar, these men who were already used to licking blood from their blades couldn't bear to see this happen. Although most of the people on the ship had killed before, they had only killed enemies. They had never killed such a small child before. Seeing such a small child die in front of them, how could they turn a blind eye? Just when everyone thought that the little fellow was definitely going to die, Little White's body flashed with a white light, and a white protective barrier appeared around Little White and Little Bun. When the water pillar hit the barrier, it didn't cause a single ripple. Everyone let out a big sigh of relief. Little Bun had escaped death. This was something worth celebrating. The surrounding onlookers were afraid that Little Bun would die in this woman's hands for no reason, so they all stepped forward to protect the little fellow. "Hey, what's wrong with you, woman? You actually attacked such a small child. Are you still human?" A guard couldn't stand it anymore and said, "That's right, I've never seen such a vicious woman. As expected, she's the most vicious. Hey, if you want to scold her, just scold her. Why do you have to drag us women into this?" A female mercenary glared at that person and said angrily, "Sorry sister, I was too angry." The man who spoke scratched his head embarrassedly. "Forget it, I'll forgive you this time. If there's a next time, I won't forgive you." The female mercenary wasn't an unforgiving person and said straightforwardly, "This woman is too vicious." The others couldn't be bothered with the small dispute between the two, and they all pointed at the woman who attacked Little Bun. "She's not human, she won't even let a child off." "That's right, when this woman first boarded the ship, I could tell that she wasn't a good person. See, it was just as I predicted." "Great, even the prophecy emperor came out." "Come on, you're just giving advice in hindsight." Unfortunately, no one bought it. Instead, it was met with a wave of boos. Surrounded by so many people, the female adventurer's face suddenly turned white, red, and green. Her complexion was unsightly. "I'm sorry, everyone. My friend is a little impatient. She didn't do it on purpose. We apologize on her behalf." Coincidentally, two of the female adventurer's companions ran over. They wanted to stop the female adventurer when she attacked, but unfortunately, they weren't fast enough. After seeing that the little guy was fine, the two of them heaved a sigh of relief and stepped forward to help mediate the situation. "What do you mean by apologizing to us? We're not the ones who were attacked, and we're not the child's relatives." "That's right. If you really have the heart, go and find the child's parents. I just saw the child's parents playing cards in the cabin. Did anyone call her? If no one did, I'll go call her." "There's no need for you to call them. Someone has already informed the child's parents." The guards and mercenaries chatted with each other, completely ignoring the three of them. At this time, Feng Wu, who was late, and Ming Shi, who was worried, ran out of the cabin. The few of them ran very fast. Feng Wu even used light steps and rushed to the little Bun in a few steps. Mom. Feng Yi excitedly looked at his little mother who suddenly appeared. Little Fatty stretched out from Little White's arms, wanting his mother to hug him. Feng Wu took the little Bun and checked him in her arms. After confirming that he wasn't injured, she returned the child to Little White's arms. "It's her, it's this woman." Just now, she chased after the child. If it wasn't for this magical beast blocking her, I'm afraid that the child would be in trouble. The enthusiastic crowd at the side immediately began to complain about the female adventurer. Speaking of which, this female adventurer was also quite famous on the ship. Her name was Zemo Fei, and she was a high-level magician. Among the adventurers, her strength was not bad. Moreover, she was very young, only in her 20s. She could be considered a genius. Geniuses had some small problems, and this Mo Faley's problem was that she was very arrogant and self-satisfied. On the ship, she was arrogant and bossy, and she would throw a tantrum in front of the crew. No one on the ship liked her. Today, under the watchful eyes of everyone, she did such a terrible thing. Except for her own teammates, no one came forward to smooth things over for her. Her popularity was really bad. Because she wasn't liked, everyone was happy to see her unlucky. As a result, one after another, people started to complain about her. This girl was about to be slandered, but this girl didn't think that all this was caused by her failure as a person. She just thought that all this was because these inferior people were jealous of her, so they wanted to see her make a fool of herself. Enough, what does it have to do with you? Meddle in other people's business. Mo Faley shouted at everyone with a livid face, then turned to look at Fengwu. Do you know how to look after the child? Do you know what this little bastard did? He ran into my room and peeped at me taking a bath. Mo Faley thought of the scene at that time and wished that she could kill that little pervert. What did our little Bun Feng Yi do? Why was he called a little pervert? This matter had to be explained from the beginning. After the little Bun left the ranks of the crawling operation, he ran around the ship every day. Today he ran into trouble. On this day, the little Bun accidentally broke into the women's bathroom. Mo Faley was the only one taking a bath. Originally, it wouldn't be a big deal if such a small child barged in and saw her. However, Mo Faley had a flaw, which was her flat chest. Fengwu's chest was still a little undulating. This girl's chest was even flatter than a man's. In order to hide this flaw, she usually wore a loose robe to cover her figure, so no one discovered her flaw. In order to not let others discover the secret of her chest, she even chose a time when no one would go to take a bath. She didn't expect that the little Bun would barge in today. Moreover, after the little Bun saw her figure, he stuttered a few words, which made Mo Faley so angry that her face turned red. What kind of words could have such an effect? Just these few. Flat, flat, flat. Just these few words made Mo Faley want to kill someone. Thus, after putting on her clothes, she chased after the little Bun and even hit him. Of course, this reason couldn't be told to outsiders. Thus, she simplified the real reason to that the little Bun didn't learn well and peeped at her taking a bath. Chapter 305. Peeking at her bathing? Are you kidding? You want to kill such a small child for peeking at you bathing? The word dumbfounded was written all over everyone's faces. This reason was too strong. They were convinced. Who are you calling a little bastard? Uneducated woman. Xiao Yi is just a child. So what if he accidentally peeked at you bathing? Are you worried that a 1-year-old child like Xiao Yi will molest you? Mo Gue had been a temporary father for so many days. He naturally had a different feeling for the child he had taken care of. He couldn't bear to see someone scold Xiao Yi like this. Mo Faley's two friends couldn't help but blush at her reason. They didn't know why Mo Faley wanted to kill the child and didn't have time to think about it. No matter how good their imagination was, they would never have thought that this reason was so strong. Miss Mo Faley, you've gone too far. Not only did you insult a 1-year-old child loudly, you even tried to kill him. No matter what your reason is, we can't forgive you for what you've done. Moreover, the reason was so nonsensical. Ming Shi looked at Mo Faley indifferently, but the expression on his face was so serious that no one dared to look at him directly. You're not allowed to scold Xiao Yi. Fengwu glared at Mo Faley and warned her. Fengwu hated it when people badmouthed the little Bun. Last time, Qiu Ruoxue had been slapped twice by the Fengwu girl because she had scolded Xiao Yi. If Ming Shi hadn't been holding her hand this time, this girl would have rushed over to beat Mo Faley up. Who wants your forgiveness? This brat peeked at me bathing. Why can't I hit or scold him? If you don't want me to hit or scold him, you should keep an eye on him. I really don't know what kind of parents you are. You can't even keep an eye on a child. Mo Faley wasn't a fool. If she hadn't been driven mad by Feng Yi, she wouldn't have done something so damaging to her image in front of so many people. Even if she really didn't like the child, she would have done it in a place where no one could see. It was too damaging to her image in front of so many people. She was a little annoyed at herself for being too impulsive, but since she had already said it, she couldn't take it back. So many people had already seen the scene of her chasing that stinking brat. It's not right for little Yi to offend you, but he must only be a little over a year old. Don't you think you've gone too far by being so harsh on a 1-year-old child and even insulting him, Miss Emophele? Riot said, unable to stand it any longer. What are you all doing here? Get back to work. The leader of the expeditionary mercenary group, Amok, happened to walk over at this moment. When he saw so many people surrounding them, he immediately roared in displeasure. The guards and members of the mercenary corps had to leave when they saw the leader of the mercenary corps. Although they wanted to see how unlucky Emophele would be, they had to leave. After the bystanders left, Amok walked over with a frown and looked at Fengwu, Murphy, and the others with displeasure. I don't care who you are, please don't cause trouble while you're on the ship. If you have any personal grudges, please settle them when you get off the ship. After saying that, he turned around coldly and left without waiting for a reply. Amok's attitude wasn't very good. It was obvious that he didn't trust the group of outsiders who had come to join the ship and didn't want to talk to them at all. However, his attitude was normal. Under normal circumstances, a merchant ship shouldn't casually take in people of unknown identities. It was easy to invite wolves into the ship and increase the difficulty of the guards' work. It was no wonder that the leader of the expeditionary mercenary group didn't like them. After Amok left, Emophele snorted coldly and turned to leave. Emogue and Ajur were caught off guard. Who would have thought that the woman who had clearly been so domineering just a moment ago would leave so decisively? As soon as Emophele left, her two companions naturally followed. Before they left, they repeatedly apologized on Emophele's behalf. It seemed that compared to Emophele, these two men were much more reasonable. Emophele left unscathed. Ajur and Emogue felt very sullen. If they didn't teach her a lesson, they wouldn't be able to take it lying down. Even if they couldn't kill people on the ship, a small lesson was necessary. At night, late at night, the Fengwu girl followed behind Ajur. Not long ago, Ajur and Emogue had knocked on the Fengwu girl's door and invited her to teach Emophele a lesson. Why did they want to teach her a lesson? What did they mean by a lesson? The Fengwu girl didn't understand. Fortunately, with Emogue's explanation, the Fengwu girl finally understood what the two wanted to do. So they wanted to teach Emophele a lesson and avenge Xiao Yi. The Fengwu girl's eyes shone. I'll go. She didn't hesitate to follow the two to do something bad. She was even a little excited. Night was a hotbed of evil, and many crimes would be covered by darkness. The Fengwu trio didn't want to commit murder or arson. They just wanted to use a small illusion to teach that woman a lesson, just like Rika in the past. Ajur could obviously do this kind of small trick alone. He called so many people out for one purpose, and that was to watch the show. Once his illusion took effect, they could just wait to see that woman lose face in front of everyone. The more they thought about it, the more excited and evil they became. The three of them split up. Fengwu and Emogue stood guard not far away, while Ajur snuck into Emophele's room alone. Xiao Wu, just wait and see. That woman is in for a bad time. Emogue laughed in schadenfreude. He covered his mouth after laughing twice. He couldn't let anyone find out that they were here. N. Fengwu's eyes lit up as she nodded. Her big black eyes were filled with anticipation. The Fengwu girl didn't like the bad guy who scolded Xiao Yi. Senior Ming, she said that they couldn't hit her on the boat, but it would take a long time to get off the boat. The Fengwu girl counted with her fingers. There were still 5 days before they could get off the boat. So long, they couldn't hit her, but Ajur said he had a way. Out of blind trust in Ajur, the Fengwu girl waited to see Emophele get taught a lesson by Ajur. The two waited for less than 5 minutes before Ajur returned. His complexion wasn't very good, and he looked a little tired. What's going on? Did we get unlucky and get discovered? Mogue guessed. No, I didn't see anyone at all. Ajur was also very disappointed. He had already prepared a limited edition illusion attack. This was something he had obtained from the successor of the Seal of Spring, one of the 4 god seals. Chapter 306. She's not here? Where could she have gone if she's not in her room at this time of night? Mogue cursed his bad luck, his young face filled with unwillingness. He wasn't willing to let that woman go just like that. Even Fengwu's eyes were filled with disappointment. She couldn't bear to see Mo Fei suffer. The Fengwu girl expressed her disappointment. How would I know where she went? Let's go back first and come back tomorrow night. There was no other way. They couldn't find her and couldn't even find a chance to make a move. Although Mogue wasn't willing to let Mo Fei go just like that, there was nothing he could do if they couldn't find her. They couldn't possibly wait here forever. After they had come in high spirits and returned in disappointment, they returned to their respective rooms with dejected expressions. The 3 of them fell asleep as soon as they returned. Little did they know that tonight was destined to be an eventful night. Early the next morning, a scream rang throughout the merchant ship. Everyone on the ship, be it the crew or the guards, ran toward the source of the scream. Ming Shi and Ajur were having breakfast when the scream rang out. Ajur almost spat out the fresh milk in his mouth onto Mogue's face. The deck was in chaos. The expedition mercenary band's men stopped the commotion and had most of them return to their posts. Only a few were sent to check out the situation. What happened? Margaret and her sister happened to be having breakfast not far from Ming Shi and the others. They asked curiously when they heard the scream. I don't know. Margaret's brother, Matson, stood up and looked out the door. Margaret immediately nodded. She was someone who loved to join in on the fun. She knew that something must have happened just by hearing the scream. Of course she wanted to go take a look. Xiao Wu, something seems to have happened outside. Do you want to go take a look? Although there weren't many women on the ship, there were still a few. Fengwu, who was close to Margaret's age and had boarded the ship to Falling Jade Island, was undoubtedly the girl Margaret liked the most. Although there was still a young Mo Fei, unfortunately, although Mo Fei was about the same age as them, she was not easy to get along with. Margaret naturally didn't want to look for her. Fengwu shook her head after hearing Margaret's invitation and continued eating the bread in her hand, indicating that she was not interested in the situation outside. Although Margaret was disappointed, she didn't force Fengwu. Instead, she invited Mogue and Jie Lu. This time, things went much smoother. Both of them were quite interested in this matter, so they followed Margaret outside to watch the fun. After he left, only Fengwu, Ming Shi, and Riot were left in the cabin. The 3 of them ate their breakfast quietly, uninterested in the commotion outside. However, the 3 of them didn't expect that their leisurely breakfast time would be disrupted so quickly. Margaret, her sister, and Ajur came running back together 10 minutes later. Oh no, oh no, oh no, Mo Fei is dead. Margaret panted heavily as she shouted anxiously. Ming Shi and the others were speechless. Who killed her? Riot asked curiously after recovering from his fright. Ajur, Margaret, and her sister pulled out chairs and sat around the table. They each poured a glass of water before continuing. I don't know. We haven't found the culprit yet. This matter has already caused quite a ruckus. Boss Hart has already ordered an investigation into this matter. Ajur finished his glass of water and put it down. You don't know who the culprit is? Ming Shi frowned inwardly and then asked, who was the first to discover it? It was the 2 male swordmasters who were traveling with Mo Fei. They said that they went to call Mo Fei out for breakfast, but found that the door wasn't closed. They opened the door and found that Mo Fei was already dead, Matson said. That Mo Fei died a bit tragically. Her corpse looked very strange. Anyway, it was quite frightening. It's a good thing that Xiao Wu didn't go. If she had seen the corpse, even you might have vomited your breakfast. Margaret drank water to suppress the churning feeling in her stomach. She had already vomited all her breakfast. She didn't want to vomit again. If she did, she'd have to throw up her dinner from the night before. It's that scary? It can't be that you've never seen a corpse before and were frightened by it, right? Riot said suspiciously. He didn't believe that a corpse could be that frightening. Only someone who hadn't seen a corpse before would be so easily frightened to vomit. Unexpectedly, Emogue waved his hand at this moment. No, I can prove that the corpse was indeed frightening and extremely abnormal. What do you mean? Even Ming Shi's interest was piqued. When we went over, we saw Emo Fei's dried-up corpse. There wasn't a single drop of blood on her body. Her clothes looked like they were hundreds of years old and would tear at the slightest touch. There was also a large swarm of worms crawling on her body. In short, she didn't look like she had just died. She looked like she had been dead for many years. Don't you think that's strange? Emogue couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine when he thought of that strange corpse. Stop talking about it. I feel uncomfortable whenever I hear people talk about worms. If I go out and vomit again. Margaret couldn't stand it anymore and rushed out to vomit. The corpse is actually so strange. Even if they hadn't been to the scene, they could tell that there was something wrong with the corpse just from Emogue's description. They just didn't know how Hart and Amok would deal with this matter. That's right, it's very strange. Anyway, we have to be careful. Don't go out alone for the time being. Xiao Wu, you have to remember not to go out alone at night. If there's any problem, remember to call us. Ajur rambled on. Because someone had died on the ship, the security on the ship was even tighter. Because Feng Wu and the others had been dawdling with the deceased Emo Fei on the day of the incident, they were even called over by Amok and Hart for questioning. Although they weren't convicted, the number of patrols around Feng Wu and the others had increased by several times. Even a fool would know that they were the main suspects. Since they were under someone else's roof, they had no choice but to lower their heads. They were all sitting on the Hart family's merchant ship. On their ship, they could send as many patrols as they wanted. There was no way they could protest to Hart. Now, Ming Shi and the others could only hope to reach Falling Jade Island as soon as possible. As long as they reached Falling Jade Island, they would immediately buy a ship and sail back to Central City. Unfortunately, things changed again. On the morning of the second day, a black tornado suddenly appeared above the sea. This tornado had extremely strong wind speed and covered a large area of the sea. Most importantly, it appeared as if it had appeared out of nowhere without any warning. Strong winds blew on the sea and huge waves rolled. Sea beasts were swept into the tornado and swept into the sky. The sea was filled with the terrified cries of sea beasts. Chapter 307. What should we do? It's all over now. This is a black whirlwind that only appears once in 100 years. How did we encounter it? I don't want to die. Save me. No. Don't come over, help. Panicked screams rang out on the deck. Everyone knew that there was no way they could escape from this tornado. They only had one path, which was death. Everyone, enter the cabin. Ming Shi gave the order and led his team members into the cabin first. Following that, Margaret and her sister came in with pale faces. Everyone's expression was extremely solemn. No one would have thought that such a thing would happen. Yesterday, they were still lamenting about Emo Fei's inexplicable death, but who would have thought that it would be their turn the next day? Not long after they entered the cabin, 2 more people came in. These 2 people were Emo Fei's friends, Myron and Tang En. The 2 of them had already been drenched by the rising waves, and now the entire ship was swaying in the strong wind. It was difficult for them to even stand steadily, and if they didn't hold on to something to stabilize their bodies, it was very likely that a large wave would hit them, and they would fall from one end to the other. What should we do? If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have gone to Jade Fall Island. We're dead for sure now. The moment the 2 of them entered, they grabbed their heads and shouted as if they were in the wind. Their emotions were clearly on the verge of collapse. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. You 2 should be more or less done. Don't shout anymore, no one is an ordinary person. Even if we are swept away by this, we might not necessarily die. What's the point of crying here? Ajur couldn't stand the two of them looking like soft-footed shrimps. He slapped the table and stood up. The sound of the wind and waves outside was loud, and with the two of them making a ruckus, his head hurt even more. Fengwu touched the ring on her hand. Little White and Little Yi had already been kept in the ring by her, but when she saw the black whirlwind outside, Fengwu frowned. Why did she have a feeling of unease, as if something was going to happen? Who would have thought that when the two heard Ajur's words, they would sneer at him? Don't you know? That's the black whirlwind that only appears once in 100 years. Where the black whirlwind appears, no magic or do qi can be used. In other words, in front of the black whirlwind, no matter how strong we are, we will become ordinary people. If that wasn't the case, why do you think those people outside were so terrified? Isn't it because they know they're dead meat? Ajur's pupils shrank slightly. Clearly, he had never heard of this before. It wasn't just Ajur. Even Ming Shi, Margaret, and her sister didn't know about this. They were all citizens of the continent, so their understanding of the sea was very limited. This black whirlwind, they only thought it was the name of a type of tornado. They never thought that the black whirlwind actually had the ability to block everyone's do qi and magic. Are you serious? Margaret tried to use her magic power, but she found that she was like an ordinary person, unable to use any energy. Ajur and the others also tried, but it was useless. Whether it was do qi or magic, they couldn't use any of it. They seemed to have become ordinary people. It's coming, it's coming. Help, I don't want to die. I don't want to die, anyone, please save me. These mercenaries and guards hired by Heart were all wailing in despair. Their voices were incomparably mournful. The black whirlwind was coming. Everyone instantly understood. Everyone, hold hands together. Don't ever let go. Ming Shi said. Everyone came back to their senses and held hands to form a circle. Even Myron and Twain came over. Nobody wanted to die. As long as there was a chance, no one wanted to die. Not long after everyone held hands, the sky and earth suddenly began to spin. The merchant ship was swept up by the tornado and constantly spun in the center of the tornado. Ah! Everyone screamed. They felt as if they had turned into spinning tops. As for the merchant ship, it had already been torn to shreds as it spun in circles. Fengwu held on to Ming Shi and Ajur's hands. She couldn't even open her eyes in the fierce wind. Suddenly, a huge sea beast smashed towards Ming Shi and the others. Ming Shi, Fengwu, and the others were fine. On the other hand, Margaret, Myron, and Twain were the ones who suffered the most. After being hit by the sea beast, the four of them couldn't help but let go of their hands. With such a heavy blow to their bodies, it was likely that the four of them had suffered serious injuries. Ming Shi didn't have the mind to care about them. Although the five of them were still holding hands, the danger was still not over. There wasn't just one sea beast in the tornado, but thousands of them. There were also the fragments of the merchant ship. No matter which one of these things hit them, they wouldn't feel good. Even if they didn't die, they would be seriously injured. When they still had their abilities, it was fine. They only needed to add a protective shield to themselves. But now that they were all ordinary people, it was impossible to create a protective shield. They could only secretly pray that they wouldn't be hit by these things. There was a saying, "What you fear will happen." Ming Shi and the others, who had just escaped a disaster, were unlucky this time. This time, it wasn't the sea beast that hit them, but they were the ones who hit the sea beast. Just in front of the five of them, a huge fish-type sea beast was struggling and wailing in the wind. Ming Shi and the others were swept up by the wind and flew towards the sea beast. If they hit it, they didn't know what would happen. Think of a way to get to the center. Ming Shi shouted. Unfortunately, the wind was too strong to hear clearly. What did you say? As soon as the voice came out of someone's mouth, it was blown away by the wind. Ming Shi had no choice but to use his eyes to tell everyone to move towards the center as much as possible. Fortunately, everyone's ability to understand was not bad. They finally reached a preliminary agreement. But to move to the center was not an easy task. Now, they had another problem that needed to be solved urgently. They were about to collide with a sea beast. Although it was just an ordinary sea beast and not a water-type magical beast. Even so, the size of a sea beast was not small. Moreover, sea beasts had thick skin and flesh. They weren't sure if their thin arms and legs would be broken if they collided with the sea beast. No matter how unwilling they were, they still collided with each other. And the effect of the collision was very obvious. The 5 of them hit the sea beast's stomach. Fortunately, it was the stomach and not the back or the head. The sea beast's stomach was soft. Although the 5 of them were a little hurt, they didn't vomit blood. But when they collided with the sea beast's body, the sea beast was scared and screamed even more. They didn't know if it was scared or hurt. The wind was spinning faster and faster. More and more sea beasts and water-type magical beasts were swept up. These sea creatures and several ships were also affected. It seemed that they were also unlucky to be swept up. Chapter 308. The tornado was still raging, but Ming-Shi and the others were gradually unable to hold on. It took a lot of strength to hold on to someone's hand in such a strong wind, and no one would be able to stand it if they held on for too long. After an unknown amount of time, the 5 of them had no strength left, and their hands slowly loosened. The wind was still blowing, and more things were being swept into the sea. There were ships, people, sea beasts, and magical beasts. Fengwu staggered up from the ground. This was an island she had never seen before. She was on a beach, and there were corpses of sea beasts and magical beasts piled up on the beach. There was no one around her except for herself. Where is this place? Where are Ajur and Ming-Shi? Fengwu patted her dizzy head. She had just woken up from her coma, and when she woke up, she found herself lying on a beach alone. There was nothing around her except for the sea beasts' corpses. This was an island, but it was not an ordinary island. The sand on the island was all black. No, not only the beach, but all the land on the island was black. Fengwu decided to find Ming-Shi and the others first. She walked step by step on the beach, carefully checking if there were any human figures mixed in with the sea beasts' corpses. Fortunately, she was lucky. Not long after, she saw an unconscious person on the beach. Fengwu trotted over and checked the person's breathing. She felt the person's shallow breathing and sighed in relief. Woo! The unconscious person did not wait for Fengwu to shake him awake, and gradually regained consciousness on his own. This was a beautiful young girl. The young girl had beautiful brown hair, and her skin was very white. The material of the clothes on her body was very good, and one could tell at a glance that she was a pampered young miss. The young girl slowly opened her eyes, and a figure appeared in her line of sight. You? Who are you? The young girl sat up in a panic. Probably because she had been unconscious for too long, the sudden exertion of strength made her feel very uncomfortable, and she almost fell back onto the beach. Fengwu. The Fengwu girl heard and reported her name. What the hell is this place? Why am I here? The young girl looked at Fengwu warily. When she realized that Fengwu didn't have any ill intentions, she calmed down a little and began to look around. You were also swept in by the black whirlwind? The girl slowly stood up. Due to her pride as a noble, she was not used to sitting on the ground and talking to people. Okay. Fengwu nodded. Have you seen my friends? There's Ming-Shi, Ajur, Emogue, and Riot. Fengwu counted the names of her team members. Unable to find anyone else, the Fengwu girl was in a bad mood. I also just woke up. How could I have the chance to meet your friends? The girl rolled her eyes. Oh. Fengwu was a little disappointed, but she didn't pester the girl to say anything else. Patting the sand off her skirt, Fengwu turned around, intending to continue the search. Seeing that Fengwu was about to leave, the young girl grew anxious. She didn't know when she would meet anyone else in this damned place. Now that she finally had a living person by her side, She didn't want to let her go no matter what. Wait for me. Let's go together. The young girl chased after Fengwu. She didn't care if Fengwu agreed or not, she just minded her own business and followed beside Fengwu. The girl gave her name. Her name was Deliana. She was a noble from the Shuiyun country, a country on the sea. Her father was the minister of the left of Shuiyun country. It could be said that she held a high position in the country. Deliana had come out to sea this time because she had heard about the appearance of the sea god's tomb. She wanted to join in the fun, but she didn't expect that something would happen to her before the fun even began. She didn't know if the family guard who came out with her was dead, and she had lost contact with all of her guards. She didn't even know if she could get in touch with them. Fengwu and Deliana searched along the beach together. They found one of Deliana's female guards and 2 guards from Hart's merchant ship. As for the others, they still couldn't find them. This won't do. Let's go in and take a look. Maybe the others have already entered the island. One of the guards from Hart's merchant ship suggested. Are we really going in? Don't you think this island is very strange? It's like a monster with its mouth wide open, waiting for us to fall into its trap. Another guard shook his head, as if he was very afraid of the unknown things on the island. It wasn't the guard's fault for being too timid. It was just that the island didn't look like a good place at first glance. The underground beach was black, and there was an obvious smell of blood on the beach. The black sand was basically dyed red by blood and eventually turned black. Standing on the beach and looking at the island, one could see that the island was also black. The plants on the island were all black. Moreover, just by standing on the beach, one could feel the strong baleful aura. It was unknown how many people had died on this island to form such an environment. It was obvious at a glance that entering the island was a very dangerous matter. We've been searching the beach for hours. If there are still people alive, it's impossible that we can't find them. I think we should still enter the island. Deliana's female guard, Mia, frowned as she looked at the surroundings. No, you've seen it too. This island is definitely not a good place. Maybe we won't be able to get out once we enter. The crew member shook his head desperately, refusing to agree no matter what. Chadun, don't be like this. I think it's more important to find someone. Only by entering the island can we find a way out. Another guard who was calmer said. Ali, I don't want to go in. I really don't want to go in. I have a bad feeling. Let's not go in. Chadun still shook his head, his attitude not softening at all. Don't try to persuade him. Does he think he's safe on the beach? I don't think so. If he doesn't want to go in, then don't force him. Everyone, good luck. Mia, let's go in. Deliana, the noble girl, was very calm. Except for the initial panic, she had always been very calm. She didn't lose control at all. Fengwu, do you want to go in and take a look? Deliana asked. Fengwu nodded. She was determined to find Ming Shi and the others. Well then, let's go together. If you two want to enter the island, then follow. If not, then just stay on the beach. No one will force you. Deliana said. She called Fengwu, and together with Mia, they turned and stepped into the island. After much consideration, Ali decided to enter the island and take a look. Staying on the beach wasn't a solution. Moreover, he had a feeling that even if he stayed here, it wasn't necessarily safe. Ali wanted Chadun to go with him, but Chadun was unwilling no matter what he said. It was as if there really was a monster on the island that would eat him. In desperation, Ali could only chase after Deliana and the others alone. Chapter 309. With the addition of Ali, the 4 of them carefully advanced towards the island. This was a strange island. There was a large forest on the island, but not a single beast roar could be heard. Not even the sound of insects could be heard. If it weren't for the sound of the waves, the entire island would be an empty island of death. The 4 of them walked along the mountain path. They didn't encounter any danger along the way, but they didn't dare to let their guard down. After half an hour of climbing, they finally made a new discovery. They found a skeleton, a human skeleton. Everyone look, there are words here. Ali pointed at a large stone next to the skeleton. At the bottom of the stone, there was a small line of words. It looked like it had been carved there for a long time. Look, what's written there? Diliana and Fengwu immediately gathered around. The words are too old. Although it's written in the common language of the continent, only a small part of it can be read. Look here, it says enemies. Kill. No one can escape. Ali's expression was grave as he read out the words on the stone. Most of the stone had been blurred by the passage of time. Only these few words were barely recognizable. Although they could only read a tiny number, these few words gave the four of them a deep sense of unease. This really wasn't a good place. Let's continue. We'll take a look at the front, Diliana said. Yes, that's all we can do. They had no way out. There was no boat to leave this place, and even their powers seemed to have been sealed. They had no other choice but to move forward and find a way out. When they woke up, they discovered that their powers had been sealed. They couldn't feel the impetus and mana they had painstakingly cultivated. It was as if they had become ordinary people who had never cultivated before. Because of the discovery of such a skeleton, everyone's mood was a little heavy. No one spoke along the way, only silently moving forward. After an hour, they finally arrived at the highest point of the island. Surprisingly, there was a dilapidated castle at the top of the mountain. The outside of the castle was covered in creepers. The castle's gate was dilapidated. It was obvious at a glance that this was an old house. The four of them stood outside the castle, unable to decide whether to enter or not. In the end, the four of them decided to go in and take a look. There were no other buildings on the island except for this castle. They had to find a place to rest and settle down. Creak. The somewhat broken door slowly opened with a creak. Before the four of them had the time to examine the furnishings in the castle, they were shocked by the figures in front of them. Someone's here, Mia exclaimed, instinctively moving in front of Diliana to protect her. Senior Ming Shi, Ajur, Emo Gue, Senior Riot. Fengwu's eyes lit up when she saw them, and she ran over. Xiao Wu. Ming Shi grabbed Fengwu's shoulder and held her in his arms. There was a slight excitement on his face. Ming Shi only hugged her for a short while before Ajur pushed him away. He took Ming Shi's place and looked at Fengwu from head to toe. It's good that you're fine. When I woke up, I didn't see you. I was worried that something had happened to you. Fortunately, you're fine now. I can finally rest assured. Ajur had been on tenterhooks all this time, afraid that something had happened to Fengwu. He truly loved Fengwu as a little sister. Ming Shi, who had been pushed aside, looked at the interaction between Ajur and Fengwu. He suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. It was a sour feeling he had never experienced before. Xiao Wu, I knew you were on this island. If it weren't for the fact that we couldn't leave this castle, we would have gone out to look for you. Emo Gue and Riot also stepped forward. Fengwu wasn't the only one who found her teammates. Diliana also found her guards. Aside from Mia, there were 2 other male guards. Of course, she couldn't have only 2 or 3 guards by her side, but only those 3 appeared here. The others were either dead or blown away by the tornado. Fengwu saw several acquaintances in the castle. First was Boss Hart, then Mercenary Expeditionaries leader, Amok, and Vice leader, Megan. There were also Murphy's friends, Myron and Town. There were 5 other people, but Fengwu didn't know any of them. What do you mean you can't leave? Diliana asked. She noticed Mugue's words and her heart tightened. Literally. This castle only allows people to enter and not leave. Once you enter, don't even think about leaving, Emogue replied. Mia turned her head and looked at Diliana's 2 male guards, who nodded with heavy expressions, proving that Mogue wasn't lying. Diliana didn't give up. She walked to the door and tried to push it open. Unexpectedly, the dilapidated door was firmly locked, not giving anyone a chance to open it. Don't try, little girl. It's useless. If it worked, we wouldn't be trapped here, a middle-aged woman sneered. The woman was dressed in a swordswoman's uniform. She held a woman's long sword in her hand, and her expression was somewhat arrogant. She wasn't very likable. Diliana ignored the woman. After several attempts and confirming that she couldn't leave, she didn't continue to break the door. Instead, she returned to her guard's side with a solemn expression. Xiao Wu, where were you when you woke up? A Jur led Feng Wu to an old sofa nearby. Ming Shi and the other two also sat down. On the beach, Feng Wu said, and then recounted her experience in detail. We all woke up at different places. When we woke up, we found ourselves on a tree halfway up the mountain. Originally, we wanted to go to the top of the mountain to see the situation on the island from above. Who would have thought that once we entered the castle, we would be unable to leave? After that, many more people came one after another, but none of us could leave. From Ajur's words, Feng Wu learned that Ming Shi and Ajur had woken up in different places. Only Ajur and Mo Gue had fallen in adjacent places. They were relatively lucky. Senior Ming Shi, can you tell where we are? Mo Gue looked at Ming Shi expectantly. Unexpectedly, Ming Shi shook his head. I can't tell at all. In his memory, he had never seen this place in any of the records. From Feng Wu's description, he knew the situation on the outskirts of the island, but he still couldn't tell where they were. Chapter 310. This island was very strange. Although they stood at the highest point of the island, they couldn't see the situation below. They could only see the distant sea. When Feng Wu and the others were on the beach, they also didn't see the castle on the island. They only saw a large forest and nothing else. However, after climbing to the top of the mountain, the castle suddenly appeared. It appeared so suddenly that it seemed as if it had appeared out of nowhere, but it also seemed as if it had always been there. Everyone, we can't do anything like this. Why don't we look around and see if we can find any clues about this place? Maybe we can find a way out, Boss Hart said after clapping his hands to attract everyone's attention. That's right. We can't just sit here and do nothing. We have to find a way to leave this place. Boss Hart's words made sense. Everyone decided to search the castle for clues. The castle was very large. It had 3 floors, and each floor had dozens of rooms. The 3 floors added together had over 100 rooms. Because there were too many rooms, everyone had no choice but to split up and search for clues. The 20 people split up, with a few searching the first floor and a few searching the second and third floors. Feng Wu pushed open one of the rooms. This room wasn't as dirty as she had imagined. It was very clean, as if someone had cleaned it every day. The room had a bed, a wardrobe, a sofa, and a dressing table. The bed was covered with neat bed sheets. Feng Wu frowned slightly when she saw the room's appearance. She then began to search for possible clues. If they wanted to leave this castle, the first thing they had to do was figure out where they were. No one could be sure if there were any clues in this castle. However, in order to leave this place, they couldn't let go of any small corner. Feng Wu searched very carefully. Aside from the drawers, she even searched under the bed sheets and carpet. After they finished searching one room, they went to look for another room, room after room. Occasionally, when they came out of another room, they would see Ming Shi and the others coming out of another room. They would greet each other and ask about each other's progress before continuing their search. After searching for a long time, no one made any progress. Ming Shi's group of 5 happened to be assigned to the first floor. There was also a middle-aged man who they did not recognize who was assigned to the same floor. This man was wearing a mage's robe and holding a staff in his hand. It was obvious that he was a mage. Everyone was not familiar with him. Other than occasionally asking if they had found any clues, they did not talk much. We've searched more than 30 rooms, but we still haven't found anything. Ming Shi and the others returned to the hall on the first floor in disappointment. When they returned, they realized that the group of people who were searching for the rooms on the second floor had returned earlier than them. Have you found any useful clues? Ajur asked the people in charge of the second floor as soon as he saw them. Diliana was one of the few people in charge of the second floor. She shook her head. There's nothing. We've searched every room and found nothing. There was no news from the first and second floors. Now, they could only place their hopes on the people they were looking for on the third floor. They hoped that they would bring good news. About 5 minutes later, the people on the third floor also came down. It just so happened that Hart and the others went to look for clues on the third floor. After Hart and the others went downstairs, they saw that Ming Shi and Diliana had returned. They were not surprised and nodded to the people on both sides. "Boss Hart, did you find anything?" A dozen people looked at Hart and the others expectantly, hoping for good news. "No, we didn't find anything." Hart's words undoubtedly cut off their last hope. "How can this be? Are we really going to be trapped in this place until we die?" Someone groaned in despair. Everyone in the hall stopped talking. They could not find a way out. Their bodies were no different from ordinary people's. If they did not find a way out, they would only starve to death on this island. It seems that everyone already knows that you can't get out. An old voice suddenly rang in everyone's ears. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Ming Shi instinctively shielded Fengwu behind him. Even if the others had lost their abilities, they were still in a defensive state. "Who is it? You're the one who locked us in here, aren't you? What's your purpose?" The leader of the expedition mercenary group, Amok, shouted at the invisible mysterious person. "That's right. Who are you? Why did you lock us in here?" Hart couldn't help but shout. "Yeah. What are you trying to do? Tell us." Many people were so agitated that they slammed the table and stood up. There were also some who remained silent. "All right, can everyone be quiet and listen to me?" After the commotion died down, the old voice began to speak. "Let me introduce to everyone. This is my island. I call it the Island of Death. In the past, too many people were swept into this island by the Black Whirlwind. But later they all died. The sand and soil outside were dyed red by their blood. In the end, it turned black." "You killed them?" Diliana asked. No. I never killed them. They were the ones who killed them," the old voice said. "If you're lucky and can help me with one thing, I'll let all of you leave safely. If not, you'll end up like the person outside." At this moment, an image suddenly appeared in front of everyone. The others didn't know who the person in the image was, but Fengwu and Diliana knew that this person was none other than Chardon, who refused to enter the center of the island. In the image, Chardon was originally standing on the black beach with a dazed expression. It was here that countless red bugs crawled out from the ground. The bugs crawled out of the ground and began to gnaw on the corpses of the dead sea beasts and magical beasts. Chardon also became the target of the bugs. No one knew where these bugs came from. Within a few minutes, the corpses of the sea beasts and magical beasts were completely devoured. As Chardon screamed in despair, he was eaten by these bugs. A living person was eaten by bugs just like that. Not even his bones were left behind. Seeing such a cruel scene, everyone felt a sense of sympathy from the bottom of their hearts. All right, everyone saw what happened to this person. Now, I hope you can help me with this matter. Otherwise, you'll end up like him. What do you want us to do? Ajur asked. They didn't know where this person came from, his name, or his strength. Although they knew nothing about this place, they were certain that this person was very strong. At the very least, he was an invincible existence on this island. What would such a person want them to do? Chapter 3:11. They couldn't figure it out, but reality didn't allow them to think too much. It's very simple. You'll know soon. After saying this, the old voice disappeared. Is he still here? He left just like that. He hasn't told us what to do yet. They couldn't hear the voice anymore, and they felt that the mysterious man had disappeared as well. They didn't know if he was still in this house, or if he had never appeared in this place. He had been talking to them through telepathy from somewhere else. What do we do now? Diliana looked at everyone. Everyone, take a rest. Didn't that person say that he wants us to do something for him? Before that thing is done, we are still safe, Boss Hart said after thinking for a moment. That's right. It's useless to worry. Let's relax and wait to see what tricks that person has up his sleeve, an old man in a magician's robe said. No one knew the old man's name, but he had the aura of a superior. It could be seen that before he came to this place, his identity must not be simple. As night fell, the 20 people sat in the living room until midnight, but the mysterious man still hadn't appeared. Why don't we just find a room to rest? We can't keep waiting like this, Boss Hart said. Now that everyone's abilities were sealed, their bodies were similar to ordinary people's. After a whole day of fear, everyone was already exhausted. If it weren't for the fear of the mysterious man killing them at any time, they would have already gone to sleep. Go into a room? Let's not. I think it's better if we don't split up. What if the mysterious man comes and kills us one by one? An unknown female magician said worriedly. Most of the others agreed with this female magician. Yes, it was too dangerous to rest separately at this time. It was safer for everyone to stay together. Fengwu leaned on Ming Shi's shoulder and blinked sleepily. She wanted to sleep very much. Fengwu's daily rest schedule was fixed, and she went to bed early. Today, she still hadn't rested so late, so Fengwu was very sleepy. If you want to sleep, lean on me for a while. If there's any movement, I'll call you. Ming Shi looked at her tired little face and touched her little head with some heartache. Okay. Fengwu nodded and fell asleep. Ming Shi saw that she fell asleep so quickly, and secretly laughed. She was so careless that she could fall asleep so quickly in such a tense atmosphere. If you guys are tired, you can sleep for a while. I'll keep watch. As a senior, Ming Shi still took care of these juniors. No need, Senior Ming Shi. Let's keep watch together. Let Ajur and Junior Mogue rest first. As a second-year student, other than Ming Shi, he was the only other senior in the class. He felt that he had the responsibility of taking care of his juniors and refused to throw the responsibility to Ming Shi alone. Although there were 20 people here, they were not familiar with each other. The night watch was very important, and everyone was used to letting their own people do it. After they arranged for trustworthy people to keep watch, those who didn't need to find a place to hide or lie down for the night. No one wanted to go in and sleep on the warm bed. This castle was too strange. If it was too dangerous to sleep separately, no one would do such a stupid thing. Wake up, hey, wake up. Jen. Fengwu opened her eyes in a daze and saw a beautiful and cute baby face. The girl's face had a few cute freckles, and her nose was a little flat. She was not old, at most 15 years old. Who are you? Fengwu found that she was sleeping on a bed with a quilt covering her body. The room's furnishings looked simple and elegant. Fengwu was sure that she had never been to this place before, and had never seen the girl in front of her. Jen, are you sleepy? I'm Anai. Hurry up and get up. The teacher asked us to gather. The ship is about to arrive at Loose Tail Island. Hurry up and get ready to get off the ship. The girl who called herself Anai wrinkled her cute nose and said helplessly, I'm not Jen, I'm... Fengwu reflexively wanted to correct her. Her name was Fengwu now. Her previous name was Sky Blue, and she had never been called Jen before. At this moment, a familiar yet strange voice sounded. This voice was not just anyone, it was the old and mysterious voice that Fengwu had heard in the castle. The game has begun. Little girl, remember what I said. Live well in this game and live until the end to find the truth. What did this mean? Fengwu girl expressed that she did not understand. Where was Ming Shi? Where was Ajur? Where was everyone? Fengwu wanted to think about what was going on, but the girl called Anai did not give her much time to think. Anai lifted the quilt and pulled Fengwu up, telling her to quickly wash up while she began to pack her things. After Fengwu washed up and changed her clothes, she was pulled to the deck by Anai. There were actually people on the deck, and there were quite a few of them. There were at least 30 people. We're finally here. After sitting on the ship for so long, I feel like my head is heavy and my feet are light. I see it. Loose Tail Island is just ahead. Great, we're finally here. If we don't arrive soon, I'll have to take medicine and sleep like a log. Why do you need to take medicine? Ignore this brat. He's seasick. He's been vomiting since he got on the ship. Hurry up and get off the ship. Hee hee. Who would have thought that you would have such a day? Serves you right for always teasing female students in class. Yeah, serves you right for being unlucky. Fengwu stood at the side and watched this group of people quarrel. She did not know what was going on. Who were these people? Why was she here? Although Fengwu had a lot of questions in her heart, she did not ask again. She just stood at the side and did not speak a word. Perhaps this was the character of the girl named Zhen that she was impersonating, so no one doubted her. Zhen, look, that's Loose Tail Island. Isn't it beautiful? Anai excitedly looked at the island not far away, her eyes full of joy. Fengwu followed her gaze and saw a beautiful island appear in front of her. The scenery on this island was beautiful and green. It was a good place to play and vacation. We're here, we're here. Everyone get off the ship. There were 2 teachers, one male and one female. The female was a magician and the male was a swordmaster. Both of them had the strength of great swordmaster and great magician. The people on the ship got off the ship one by one. After getting off the ship, everyone saw a well-dressed and elegant middle-aged man walking towards a girl. Chapter 3:12. The people on the boat disembarked one by one. After disembarking, everyone saw a well-dressed and elegant middle-aged man walking towards a girl. Miss, you must have worked hard along the way. And send someone to help my classmate with her luggage. Have you arranged the rooms? The girl's eyes were filled with arrogance as she looked at the housekeeper and asked. It has already been arranged. Please rest assured, Mississippi, the housekeeper said. Hurry up and lead the way. The teachers and classmates are all tired from the journey. The island that father bought is too far away. It took a person a month to travel by boat. The girl complained. Listening to the girl's words, this island was actually bought by the girl's father. Soon, the housekeeper sent someone to take everyone's luggage. Fengwu and Anai walked at the back. The others walked forward to get closer to the girl. Yunemo's family is really rich. Her father bought such a beautiful island for her birthday. She really has a different life. When can I have such a small island as my private property? Walking not far in front of Fengwu, a girl whispered softly. Keep dreaming. Don't you know who Yunemo's parents are? Her family's business covers several countries and has business dealings with many countries on the sea. Her mother is the eldest princess of the Bohai Kingdom. Not only is her family rich, but her bloodline is also noble. It really makes people envious. Another voice said enviously. It could be heard that this girl called Yunemo's family was very rich. Her family was also very rich. She was the girl with the best family background among all the seniors. And they had come to this island because they had been invited by Yunemo to her new island for a vacation. Zhen, later on you must not be alone. Yunemo invited you, but I always feel that she has bad intentions. She has never liked you. Be smart and don't let her find a chance to deal with you. Do you understand? Anai suddenly lowered her voice and whispered in Fengwu's ear. The information revealed by these words was that this girl called Zhan and the envied Yunemo did not have a good relationship? I'll be careful. Fengwu nodded. Yunemo is too much. Just because Yalan said a few more words to you, she's targeting you and causing trouble for you time and time again. I heard that teacher didn't plan to let you come to Matsuo Island for a vacation because she knew that you two didn't get along, but Yunemo specifically asked you to come with her. I don't believe that she's not plotting anything. Anai muttered and scolded Fengwu for a while, but she saw that Fengwu just stared ahead with her eyes wide open and didn't say anything. She couldn't help but wonder. Jen, are you okay? Why are you so quiet today? Usually, Jen would have a lot to say on this topic, but today, she didn't say anything, which was strange. Nothing, I don't feel like talking, Fengwu said. Seeing her like this, and Nai didn't say anything else. Along the way, the two of them quietly admired the surrounding scenery. Yunemo's family had built an ancient castle at the highest point of the island. The castle was large and luxurious, and one could tell at a glance that it had cost a lot of money. After walking up the mountain and seeing the castle for the first time, Fengwu was stunned. This place. Wasn't this the castle on Death Island? Fengwu was stunned. Aside from the difference in age, the two castles looked exactly the same. After walking into the hall, Fengwu was certain that this castle was the one that had trapped them. Why was it like this? Fengwu felt that her brain wasn't smart enough, and she couldn't figure it out. Could it be that Death Island was Matsuo Island? What exactly happened? Why did Matsuo Island become like that? Why was it like this? Many questions appeared in Fengwu's mind, but no one could answer them. The housekeeper sent someone to take them to find their own room. Because there was no lack of rooms in the castle, each of the students had their own room. The room that Fengwu was assigned to was the most remote location, and it was a distance away from the other rooms. Fengwu didn't have any opinion about this room, and she didn't even ask about it. The little maid who was leading the way was already prepared to answer the other party's questions, but seeing that she didn't ask, she was somewhat unaccustomed. Fengwu entered the room, and just as she was about to organize her thoughts, there was a knock on the door. Fengwu opened the door doubtfully, and there was a little maid standing outside the door. The little maid was delicate and pretty, and she had a bit of spiritual energy. "What's the matter?" Fengwu asked. "Xiao Wu." The little maid asked tentatively. Her voice was soft and pleasant to hear. "You are." Fengwu was stunned, and she didn't understand how this little maid knew her name. "It's really you." The little maid was excited, and then she pulled Fengwu's hand, and after pulling her into the room, the door was immediately closed. "You are a Jur?" Fengwu asked with uncertainty. "How did you know?" The little maid, a Jur, opened her beautiful eyes wide in disbelief. He had become like this, and even he couldn't recognize himself, but Fengwu could still recognize him. It was too inconceivable. "Every time you pull me, you do this action, and it's the same with your eyes." Fengwu blinked and said seriously. Ajur's appearance had changed, but his eyes and actions hadn't changed at all. Moreover, when they approached her, Fengwu unconsciously had a good impression of the little maid, who she had never seen before. That kind of familiar feeling made it difficult for Fengwu not to suspect the little maid's identity. "As expected of my good friend, you can still recognize me even after I've become like this." Ajur used this young girl's body to sit on Fengwu's bed, and then he pulled his clothes and touched his hair and face. Obviously, he was still trying to accept his new identity. "How did you recognize me?" Fengwu looked in the mirror, and her appearance had changed. Jeanne was a silver-haired little beauty, and she didn't look like Fengwu at all. "Your personality is too easy to recognize. I was just suspicious and didn't dare to be sure, so I came here with the idea of giving it a try. I didn't think it was really you." Ajur sighed at his good luck, and found Fengwu so quickly. As for the others, he was still looking for them, and he didn't know what identity they had been assigned. If they also became women, then there would be fun to watch. He hoped that they would become women, otherwise, it would be too unfair if he was the only one who changed gender. "Why did we come here?" Fengwu knew that Ajur was very smart. When she couldn't figure out a problem, she habitually asked someone smarter than her, and this person could only be Ajur. Ajur shrugged. "I don't know. In the latter half of the night, I suddenly felt very sleepy and fell asleep. When I woke up, I was already like this. It took me half an hour to get used to this identity." Chapter 313. Xiao Wu, I can't stay for too long. Let me ask you, did that mysterious person say anything to you? Ajur thought that her identity as a little maid had work to do. If she disappeared for too long and was discovered, it would be over. Yes, he said that my mission is to live until the end and find the truth. Fengwu said. Mine is similar. He also wants me to live until the end and then find the truth. It seems that there will be an unexpected change in this place. Ajur rubbed his chin. I can't stay any longer. I'll come find you at night. Ajur couldn't stay any longer. After finding Fengwu, he had to leave after saying a few words. Fengwu sent Ajur to the door. After confirming that no one had seen Ajur leave, she let Ajur leave. Fortunately, Yanemo had selfishly arranged such a remote room for Fengwu. If it wasn't, she might have been discovered. When night came, Yanemo had arranged a delicious meal for everyone to enjoy. Fengwu never had any resistance to big meals. She ate happily at the table. After the food was carefully cooked by the chef, it was very delicious. Fengwu ate a lot, but she also received a lot of eye rolls. Unfortunately, these people rolled their eyes at Fengwu. This girl always cared about nothing when it came to eating. It was probably because the students in the class all knew that Yanemo didn't like Jen. When facing Jen, they either ignored her or ridiculed her. If it was the real Jen, she would probably be very disappointed and sad, but Fengwu didn't feel this way. After eating dinner and returning to the room, the sky outside began to open and it began to rain heavily. The rain became heavier and heavier, and the sound of thunder and lightning could be heard incessantly. Fengwu closed the window and drew the curtains. Through the curtains, she could still see the streaks of lightning. In the middle of the night, Ajur came. He didn't find another companion. He didn't know what the others had become. After the two met, they didn't find any valuable information and went to sleep. Early the next morning, a series of screams rang out. A few minutes later, Fengwu's door was banged on by someone. Fengwu opened the door. It was a Nai who knocked on the door. A Nai looked at Fengwu in horror. This is bad, Jen. Someone's dead. Elan's dead. He's dead. Fengwu's eyes widened. Fengwu and Ajur both guessed that something was going to happen, but they didn't expect it to happen so quickly. It was only the first day, and someone had already died. With a Nai, Fengwu went to Anlun's room to look at his body. It was a gruesome death. His limbs had been chopped off, and even his heart had been dug out. When he died, his eyes protruded out, and the whites of his eyes were dilated. He looked like he had died with a grievance. Because Elan's death was too gruesome, and he died on Yanemo's new island, Yanemo felt humiliated. She ordered the steward to investigate the matter thoroughly. No one could have imagined that this was just the beginning. From that day onwards, people died in the castle every day. One day, it could be a senior. The next day, it could be a maid. The shadow of death began to envelop the island. 7 days later, a total of 7 people had died. 4 of them were Yanemo's classmates, and 3 of them were her maids. Because they hadn't found the slightest bit of information about the murderer, and because the seniors kept dying, the 2 teachers decided to leave Matsuo Island and return to school. Yanemo didn't want to stay here any longer, so on the 8th day, everyone decided to leave together. But would they be able to leave? When they went to the beach to take a boat, they found that the boat had sunk. Not only were the boats used to pick up the students and teachers, but all the boats on the island were damaged as well. That wasn't the worst. From that day onwards, everyone on the island became ordinary people. No one could use their abilities. After losing their strength, the people on the island were on the verge of madness. Fengwu felt that Jen's strength, which wasn't very strong to begin with, had disappeared. It was just like on Death Island. No one could retain their strength on that island. The deaths continued. People died every day. Only when there were only 50 people left from the original 100 people on the island did the deaths stop. The remaining 50 people were like birds startled by the twang of a bow. The people were terrified. The shadow of death constantly shrouded this group of people. During these days, Ajur had found Ming Shi, Mo Gue, and the others. The 5 of them were finally gathered. Ming Shi's gender hadn't changed. He was still a man, but his identity was that of a guard on the island. Mo Gue had become Fengwu's classmate, a small and unremarkable boy. Riot had become the island's manservant, and a middle-aged one at that. It could be said that the age gap between the 5 of them was the largest. Although the 5 of them were gathered, there was no news of the others who had been stranded on Death Island with them. Perhaps their acting skills were too good, so they didn't give themselves away. "Jen, I want to take a bath. Can you come with me?" Annette appeared at the door of Feng Wu's room with a nervous expression, holding a change of clothes. "Okay." Feng Wu nodded and agreed without any pressure. The conditions on the island were very good. Every room had a bathroom. If one wanted to go to the bathroom, they didn't have to go out of the room. On Matsuo Island, there was a large bathroom. Because Yanemo liked to take baths in the large bathroom, her family had specially built a large bathtub for her. There was even hot water in the bathtub for her to bathe. The 2 girls held their clothes and walked to the large bathtub at the back of the castle. The bathtub was very large, and there was a private room at the back that belonged to Yanemo. The others could only use the other bathtub outside. The 2 girls soaked in the hot water and let out a long sigh of relief. Being able to soak in the hot water made them feel relaxed. "Xiao Wu, I want to go to the bathroom. Wait for me." Annette put on her clothes and got out of the water. Feng Wu nodded and told her to go without worry. Soaking in the warm water, Feng Wu felt her eyelids getting heavier and heavier until she couldn't open them anymore. At that moment, a rope stretched out from behind and wrapped around Feng Wu's neck. Feng Wu was suddenly awakened. She felt that she couldn't exert any strength. She wanted to resist, but she couldn't. She felt that it was getting harder and harder for her to breathe. Then, she lost consciousness. Before Feng Wu lost consciousness, her last thought was, who was it? Who wanted to kill her? Behind Feng Wu, someone took out a small knife and cut open Feng Wu's wrist. Then, he put Feng Wu's hand into the water. Blood spread in the water and dyed the clear water red. After doing all this, that person sneered and left quickly from the other side. Chapter 314. Behind Feng Wu, someone took out a small knife and cut open Feng Wu's wrist, then put Feng Wu's hand into the water. Fresh blood spread in the water, dyeing the clear water red. After doing all this, that person sneered and quickly left from the other side. A few minutes later, Anai came back in a hurry after going to the bathroom. Behind her were 2 female classmates. These 2 girls also wanted to take a bath and made an appointment together. On the way here, they saw Anai and knew that Anai was also here to take a bath. Naturally, they followed her. Worried that Feng Wu would be in danger if she stayed there alone, Anna rushed back with the 2 girls as fast as she could. The 3 girls walked into the hot spring pool, which was specially used for guests to take a bath, and saw Feng Wu sitting motionlessly in the pool with her back to them. "Xiao Wu, I'm back. Sorry to keep you waiting. I met Farah and Mo-chi on the way, so we came together." Seeing Feng Wu sitting in the water, Anna didn't see anything wrong and took off her clothes as she spoke. "Jen, you're really brave. We don't know where that murderous demon is hiding, but you dare to stay here and take a bath alone." Farah took off his skirt as he spoke. "That's right. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't dare to stay here alone." Mo-chi also took off her clothes and prepared to go into the water. After taking off their clothes, the 3 girls wrapped themselves in towels and were about to soak in the water for a while, but when they came closer, they found that the hot spring pool was already dyed red with blood. "Ah!" Screams pierced the sky, and the 3 girls were so scared that their faces turned pale. Anna, who usually had a good relationship with Jen, was so scared that she sat on the ground. "What's wrong? What happened? Did something happen to someone again? Killing people again? What exactly does that damned demon want to do?" Waves of curses came from the castle, but everyone didn't stop and rushed toward the source of the sound. "Who's in trouble?" Most of the survivors rushed over. When they arrived at the hot spring pool, they saw the 3 girls hugging each other in fright, and the last one lying on the ground. It was obvious that they were badly frightened. "Zhen, something happened to Zhen." Anai cried with a pale face. Ming Shi and Ajur, who had blended in with the crowd, heard this and their expressions changed drastically. Ming Shi and Ajur stepped forward one after another and immediately went to check on Feng Wu's condition. He checked Feng Wu's pulse between her legs and found that although her pulse was weak, it was still beating. The two exchanged a look and heaved a sigh of relief. Miss Zhen is still alive. Let's save her first." Ajur did not forget the role he was playing. He was now a little handmaiden, and he had already attracted attention when he rushed forward. He could not give himself away now. "Quick, go and help get Jen up." Although Yanemo didn't like Jane, it was more important to save her at this time. She immediately ordered 2 maids to come forward to help and get Feng Wu up. "Gentlemen, please leave us alone for a moment." Ajur didn't want Feng Wu to be stared at by so many men. Feng Wu didn't wear clothes because she was soaking in the hot spring. Although the hot spring water covered all the parts below Feng Wu's shoulders, if they got her up at this time, those men would see Feng Wu completely. Although this body was obviously not Feng Wu's, these men also knew that it was not appropriate for them to be here. After Ajur finished speaking, they all respectfully withdrew. It was not easy to wait for a survivor. If they could find out who the murderer was, it would be good for everyone. As long as they caught the murderer, there was nothing to be afraid of. All the men present withdrew, and Ming Shi naturally followed. Although Ajur was present, his eyes were elsewhere. He didn't want to take advantage of Feng Wu. After the 2 handmaidens came forward to dress Feng Wu, Ming Shi immediately took the initiative to take charge of carrying Feng Wu back to her room. After the housekeeper found medicine and applied it to Feng Wu, her condition was basically stable. Feng Wu's injury was not serious, but she had lost a lot of blood. If it was discovered a little later, it was still uncertain whether she could be saved. "What the hell is going on? You 3, tell me, how did something happen to Jen?" The 2 teachers had not yet appeared. At this time, the role of a teacher became obvious. It was very important to have someone who could preside over the overall situation. Teacher Bellard, "We don't know what's going on either. Something happened to Jen when we went there." The one who spoke was Farah. Her face was pale, and her eyes were red and swollen from crying. "Teacher Bellard, we don't know anything. Something happened to Jen when we went there," Mochi also said. The 2 girls were probably frightened. They looked delicate and pitiful, which made people feel sorry for them. Probably because they had seen too many dead people recently, no one was in the mood to feel sorry for others. Everyone was guessing who the murderer was. "Why did Jen go to take a bath alone at this time? Didn't I tell you not to act alone?" "Teacher Dryo, Jen didn't go alone. She went with me. But not long after we went there, I suddenly wanted to go to the toilet, so I left for a while. I swear I only left for a few minutes. I really didn't expect Jen to have an accident in just a few minutes. It's all my fault. If I didn't ask Jen to take a bath with me, she wouldn't have had an accident." Anai blamed herself. She and Jen had always been good friends. Both of them were invisible people who no one paid attention to. Naturally, they became best friends. Their relationship had been very good since they met. If something happened to Jen because of her, she would never forgive herself. "Don't cry, Anai. Jen won't blame you. Don't be sad." Bellard patted Anai's thin shoulder and comforted her softly. "Everyone should be more careful in the future. If you want to take a bath, you can go during the day. Don't leave the castle at night to create an opportunity for that murderer." Dryo sighed. The appearance of that murderer recently had made everyone frightened and on the verge of a mental breakdown. They clearly knew that there was such a dangerous person waiting to kill them, but they still dared to go to a remote place to take a bath in the middle of the night. These girls loved to look beautiful, but they couldn't abandon their lives. Teacher, I know I was wrong. I won't do it again." Anai sobbed. "It's good that you know you were wrong." After asking about the situation, Dryo didn't make things difficult for these girls. He turned to look at the butler. "Mr. Butler, how is Jen's situation? When will she wake up?" Dryo's question was what everyone was most concerned about. Now that more than half of the people on the island had died during this period of time, if they still couldn't catch that murderer, they were afraid that everyone would die here. Chapter 3:15. Miss Jeanne has lost too much blood and needs to rest. I'm afraid she won't wake up tonight. Fortunately, there was a family doctor on the island, and Feng Wu's wounds had already been treated. Everyone was a little disappointed, but they didn't want to force an injured person to wake up. That would be so ungentlemanly. Disappointed, everyone returned to their rooms to rest. At this moment, on an unfamiliar large ship, a girl opened her eyes under the bright sunlight. Margaret opened her large eyes in a daze, feeling her body go soft and weak. She carefully observed her surroundings and found herself in a cabin. She carefully got up, only to find a girl sleeping beside her. This girl was none other than Feng Wu. Xiao Wu, wake up. Margaret patted Feng Wu's face, but it was useless. Feng Wu was still unconscious. You're awake. You're so lucky to be able to wake up. A young man in his 20s walked in. The man had a head of green hair, a tall figure, and curiosity could be seen in his eyes. Did you save us? Margaret wasn't an idiot. In this situation, it was obvious that someone had saved them. She remembered that before she lost consciousness, she was swept into a tornado. Under such terrifying winds, it was a miracle that she didn't die. Of course. You guys are really lucky. You just happened to be floating near our ship. After I found you, I asked the crew to save you. The young man said nonchalantly. Apart from the two of us, did you see anyone else? Was my brother Matson rescued as well? Margaret asked nervously. Your brother is also on our ship. He woke up this morning and came to see you. He was probably too tired and fell asleep after seeing you. Hearing this, Margaret sighed in relief. It was good that her brother was fine. Apart from your brother, we saved 4 men. These 4 people aren't very old. I don't know if you know them. The young man said. Can I go take a look? Margaret wasn't sure if it was Ming Shi and the others. After all, they weren't the only ones who were involved. There were many others. Of course, if your body can take it. The young man had no intention of stopping her. After all, the body was hers. She could do whatever she wanted. I'm fine. Can I go and see them now? Marguerite asked. No problem, let's go. I'll lead the way. Right, my name is Bezer. The owner of this ship is my grandfather. The youth named Bezer said. My name is Margaret. Bezer took Margaret to see the other 4 people who had been rescued. Margaret knew all 4 of them. One was Emo Gue, another was Riot, and the other 2 were Murphy's friends, Myron and Twain. However, Ming Shi and Ajur were nowhere to be seen. It was unknown if they had been rescued by someone else. I know all of them. We all took the same ship to Falling Jade Island. But we didn't expect something to happen along the way. We encountered the Black Whirlwind, a once-in-a-century event. Margaret smiled bitterly. She didn't know whether to call them unlucky or lucky. They had clearly encountered such a huge disaster, yet they were still alive. I know. Your brother already told us all this when he woke up. He pointed at Matson, who was sleeping beside the other 4. Thank you. If it weren't for you, we probably wouldn't have survived. Margaret thanked them sincerely. No need to thank us. You were lucky to be able to wake up. The others weren't so lucky. The young man's eyes darkened. There seemed to be a trace of regret in his words. What do you mean by that? Could it be that Xiao Wu and the others are seriously injured? Margaret couldn't help but worry. It would be fine if they were only injured. But they aren't just injured. Bezer looked at the unconscious people and said, What are you talking about? Don't tell me they're suffering from some hidden injuries that aren't easy to treat. In this era of magic, all kinds of injuries could be treated with potions and magic. Only serious internal injuries and incurable diseases could not be treated. If that's the case, then it's fine. I can't explain it clearly in a short time. You should go and see my grandfather. My grandfather is a great necromancer. My grandfather will explain the situation of your friends clearly to you. Necromancer? What the hell was that supposed to mean? Margaret expressed that her understanding was limited due to her lack of education. Shouldn't they find a wood or light magician to treat their injuries? They could even take potions. Why did they have to find a necromancer? Was he trying to tell her that Xiao Wu and the others were dying? Margaret's little face was filled with tears. She had a bad feeling about this. Feng Wu had been attacked by an unknown person. She had been unconscious for an entire night. The butler had asked the kitchen to make some tonics to replenish her blood and energy. The butler had sent a juror to take care of Feng Wu's injuries because of his good performance as a maid. When Feng Wu woke up, the first thing she saw was a juror, who had turned into a woman. You're awake. A juror looked at Feng Wu in surprise. It hurts. Feng Wu touched her neck, which had already been treated with medicine. There was a deep scar on her neck. Her throat felt terrible when she spoke. Idiot, do you know you almost died? A juror knocked on her head gently. The Feng Wu girl had never been injured so badly. It was her first time being in such a life-threatening situation. It hurts. Feng Wu was in a lot of pain. The pain in her wrist was secondary, but the injury on her neck made her feel very uncomfortable. She even swallowed her saliva when she spoke. It was really uncomfortable. The Feng Wu girl, who was in great pain, wanted some comfort. She had already started to treat a juror as her master and acted like a spoiled child. Don't talk if it hurts too much. Just write it down. A juror knew that her throat was uncomfortable. Seeing the healthy Feng Wu girl become like this, a juror also felt bad. Listen to me first. You just have to nod or shake your head. Let me ask you first. Did you see what the person who attacked you looked like? A juror wasn't the only one who was concerned about this. Everyone outside was also concerned about this. Feng Wu shook her head. No, she didn't see anything. Then did you smell anything special at the time? Feng Wu thought for a moment and nodded. Write it down here. A juror took out a stack of white paper and a pen from somewhere. He wanted Feng Wu to communicate by writing. Chapter 3:16. With a pen and a piece of paper in hand, Feng Wu obediently wrote down what she felt and smelled at that moment. Feng Wu wrote down what she wanted to say on the paper and handed it to a juror. You said that you smelled a floral fragrance and suddenly felt sleepy. Then someone strangled your neck. You wanted to struggle for help, but you couldn't use any strength. Then you fainted. In other words, Feng Wu didn't know anything about the person who attacked her. She didn't even see the other party's clothes. Feng Wu nodded. She really didn't see anything. In this place, she couldn't use any of her abilities. She couldn't even hear the sounds of animals and plants. The Feng Wu girl was very uncomfortable. A juror got the answer and let Feng Wu rest. He had to go out and deal with the people who wanted to know the answer. A juror closed the door and left Feng Wu's room. Almost as soon as she left the room, she was surrounded by people. A juror asked everyone to go to the hall to talk. She mixed in with the crowd. After everyone left with a juror and the fake girl, he hid in the dark and guarded Feng Wu's room. He was afraid that the mysterious person would kill Feng Wu again. How was it? Did Jen say something? Did she see the murderer? She must have seen it, right? Yanemo asked almost incoherently. Recently, there had been a lot of murders. Yanemo was about to go crazy. They couldn't wait to get useful information from Jen and then find the murderer. A juror shook his head. Miss Jen didn't see anything. Because Miss Jen's throat was injured, I asked her to write down her experience. Miss Jen wrote it herself. A juror handed the paper Feng Wu wrote to Yanemo. No matter what, she was now acting as Yanemo's maid. Yanemo took the paper and read it quickly. After reading it, her face turned pale. A piece of paper was passed around in everyone's hands. After reading it, everyone's face became very disappointed. They thought that there would be some news, but they didn't expect that there was still no clue. Without any clues, no one cared about Feng Wu's injury anymore. Except for the two teachers and a Nai, the others didn't even ask about it. For them, saving their own lives was the most important thing. The life and death of others had nothing to do with them. Mo Gue had also visited Feng Wu in the name of her classmate. In order not to arouse suspicion, he didn't dare to visit often. After all, the relationship between Jing Zhan and the original owner that Mo Gue was playing wasn't that good. If Mo Gue suddenly changed his attitude, it would be too suspicious. A bloody storm continued to unfold on Pinetail Island. The scythe of the Grim Reaper was already placed on everyone's head. At the same time, on a large ship, the calm sea, the dazzling sunlight, and the cries of beasts on the sea, everything was so tranquil. Margaret followed Bezer to the room of Bezer's grandfather. Bezer's grandfather was a very kind old man. The old man's name was Sherman, and he was a necromancer. Sherman was also a well-known figure among necromancers. He was very righteous and compassionate. Margaret had a good impression of this benevolent old man the moment she saw him. The benevolence in the old man's eyes was something that most people didn't have. "Sit down, child." Sherman sat behind his desk. He wasn't surprised to see Margaret enter the room. Instead, he smiled kindly. "Hello, thank you and your family for saving my friends and me." Margaret said a little cautiously, "You're welcome, child." "I believe that it was the will of the Lord that we met," Sherman said. "Grandpa, I want to know if something happened to my friends. Just now, young Master Bezer told me that they might not wake up. I want to know what that means. Are they seriously injured?" Margaret asked anxiously, worried about Feng Wu and the others' injuries. Although she and Feng Wu hadn't known each other for long, they were already good friends. She had a good impression of Feng Wu, who was such an innocent and cute girl. She really didn't want to see anything happen to her. Hearing Margaret's question, Sherman sighed. "No, girl, come with me." Sherman stood up, walked around the desk, and gestured for Margaret to follow. Sherman led Margaret to the bow of the ship and pointed to the front. "Do you see that island?" Sherman pointed at a small island that was full of greenery. The island was covered in greenery, and the environment looked very good. "Yes, that island is very beautiful." Margaret didn't know what Sherman wanted to do, but she still answered honestly. "That island was called Pinetail Island 100 years ago. Now, it's called Death Island." "Death Island? That..." "Grandpa, I just want to know what kind of injuries my friends suffered. Does that island have anything to do with my problem?" Margaret expressed her confusion. "Of course it has something to do with it. If I'm not wrong, they should all be on Death Island." Sherman said seriously. "What? Please don't joke around. Xiao Wu and the others are clearly sleeping on your ship. Why would you say that they're on that island? This is too strange." In fact, what Margaret wanted to say the most was, "Are you sure you're not senile?" No matter how stupid Margaret was, she knew that she couldn't say that. If she did, she would definitely be chased off the ship and fed to the sea beasts. Their bodies are still here, but their souls are long gone. As a necromancer, Sherman could tell whether a person's soul was still there at a glance. "Soul? You mean to say that the reason why they can't wake up is because their souls are trapped on that island?" Shocked, Margaret turned pale with fright. She wasn't stupid and grasped the main point in just a few sentences. "How could this happen? What should we do now? Should we go to the island and get their souls back?" Margaret said helplessly. "If they were injured, it would be fine. Whether it was external or internal injuries, there was always a way to treat them. But now that their souls were gone, what should she do?" Sherman shook his head and sighed. "It's useless. That island is no longer a place where any living creature can enter. Entering Death Island will only result in death." "I'm confused. Why would Xiao Wu and the others' souls be on that island? What's going on? I'm confused. Margaret expressed that she didn't read much and couldn't understand. This island of death is related to a tragedy that happened 100 years ago. Ever since that tragedy, Matsuo Island has become the island of death. No human can set foot on it anymore. None of the people who set foot on the island have returned alive. Chapter 317. This island of death is related to a tragedy that happened 100 years ago. He sighed deeply as he recalled the tragedy that shook the entire ocean world. Ever since that tragedy, Matsuo Island has become the island of death. No human can set foot on it anymore. No one who sets foot on the island can come back alive. No one can come back alive? Margaret's heart skipped a beat. She felt that she had gotten herself involved in something terrible. Grandpa, can you just tell me if Xiao Wu and the others can be saved? I don't understand what you're saying, Margaret said helplessly. She just wanted to know if Feng Wu and the others could be saved. In the end, the old man gave her a bunch of words that she couldn't understand. Margaret was speechless. Sherman saw her anxiety and said, "They can't be saved. No one can save them. The only one who can save them is themselves." Grandpa, can you not make it sound so profound? I'm not good at studying since I was young. I've never passed cultural classes. Sherman was speechless. Sherman coughed lightly. He was having a headache because of this girl. Which family did this girl come from? Why was she so annoying? To put it simply, their souls are trapped on the island. If they want to leave the island, they can only rely on their own strength. Outsiders can't help them. Sherman didn't want to waste time with her and went straight to the point. Margaret finally understood. She admitted that her cultural level was too low. She wanted to sleep every time she went to cultural class. However, it wasn't her fault. The one at fault was the cultural class teacher. That old woman would talk long and hard every day in class. Perhaps it was because she had lived alone for decades and hadn't had a boyfriend, but she was a psychopathic old woman. She didn't want to stray off topic, so she went back to the previous topic. Then we can only wait here. Is there nothing we can do? Margaret asked, unwilling to give up. There's nothing we can do. That guy won't let the souls on the island leave easily. Sherman shook his head. When he talked about that guy, he seemed to be recalling something. Who is that guy? Instinctively, Margaret felt that the guy Sherman was talking about was probably the key figure in the incident where Feng Wu and the rest fell into a coma. He's a pitiful person. Let's not talk about it. When people get old, they like to reminisce about the past. Let's go. You should also rest. Before your body fully recovers, you can't be too tired. Sherman came back to his senses and waved his hand after saying these words. He was sending the guest off. Although Margaret was concerned about the safety of Feng Wu and the others, she knew her limits. Now wasn't the time to pester this old man. This old man must know a lot of things, and she had to find an opportunity to ask him. Back in the room, Margaret saw Feng Wu's sleeping figure. She sighed deeply and tried to use her power to wake Feng Wu up. Unfortunately, it was useless. The power she used was like a stone sinking into the sea. It was useless. She lowered her head in disappointment. Xiao Wu, you have to wake up soon. At this moment, on Death Island, the people were still shrouded in an oppressive atmosphere. After Feng Wu's accident, a male student went missing the next day. In the end, his body was found in a flower bed. The male student's main artery had been cut open with a knife. He couldn't be more dead. The next few days were the peak period of death. Every day, people died in different ways. Whether it was the servants on the island or the students in the school, everyone was in a bad mood. Desperate cries could be heard from time to time. The waltz of death continued without any sign of stopping. As for who the murderer was, no one had found out. As teachers, DeLeo and Bellard had mobilized all the available servants and students on the island to conduct a large-scale search on the island. However, after searching every corner of Matsuo Island, they still couldn't find a suspicious person who was suspected to be the murderer. They couldn't find the murderer, and there were no signs of strangers on the island. All these signs pointed to the possibility that the murderer was among them. The murderer hid very well and didn't leave any clues at all. After every murder, there was no useful information left at the scene. Feng Wu's injury had healed after a few days of recuperation. Now, she could get out of bed and walk around. She also followed the large group to patrol the mountains to search for the murderer. These days, Ming Shi and the others had been studying the murderer's methods and habits. Although the results of the research weren't perfect, it wasn't completely useless. While Ming Shi and the others were studying the murderer, the other people on the island weren't idle either. In order to find the murderer, the two teachers organized everyone into small groups. Each group had 5 people, and the 5 people had to act at the same time. If someone acted alone, it meant that there was a possibility of committing a crime, and they would be heavily supervised. This method was indeed useful. At least, no one was killed in the last 2 days. After 2 days, no new victims appeared. The two teachers and the owner of the island, Yanemo, called everyone together for a small meeting on the murderer. All the surviving students and servants participated. Only some guards were still dutifully patrolling outside. "Everyone, tell me, what do you think of the murderer? Or did you discover anything?" DeLeo stood in the middle of the hall and looked at the survivors in the room. Aside from the dozen or so guards who were still patrolling, there were only about 20 people alive. There were originally 100 people on the island, but now, so many had died. How could this not be shocking? "Teacher, I have something to say." The youth who spoke was called Yalan. He was very handsome and had a confident face. It was easy for women to have a good impression of him. This boy was none other than the boy that Yanemo liked. For him, Yanemo had done many unpleasant things and suppressed many girls who had come into contact with Yalan. Anna's friend, Yu Zhen, was one of those who had been suppressed. Yalan was DeLeo's favorite disciple. DeLeo was very satisfied with Yalan. He was talented and hard-working. He was neither arrogant nor impatient. He was a good student who didn't let others worry about him. As soon as Yalan stepped forward, the people who were whispering to each other immediately shut up. Yalan was quite popular in the school. Most people were willing to listen to what he said, except for a few. "Yalan, if you have any opinions, just say it," DeLeo said with a nod. Everyone looked at Yalan. Despite being stared at by more than 20 people, he didn't have stage fright. He calmly looked at everyone. Chapter 318. Yanemo looked at Yalan with a hint of crazed infatuation. This was the man she loved. He was so outstanding. He was the only man in the world who was compatible with her. "Teacher, and everyone, I don't know if you've noticed, but all the students who died had a certain pattern to their deaths," Yalan said. "Pattern? Did you discover something, Yalan?" Bellad said with some surprise. Yalan nodded. "Teacher, and everyone, take a look at these paintings." A stack of paper appeared in Yalan's hand. Everyone knew that Yalan was interested in painting, so no one was surprised that he could take out a stack of paper. The papers were spread out neatly on the table. The paintings were of how everyone looked when they died. Yes, the paintings were of the people who had died. Their appearances at that time were very lifelike. Even the furnishings of the rooms, the outdoor environment, and the wounds on their bodies were all very lifelike. They were exactly the same. Ming Shi, who had been forced to become a guard, wasn't here. He couldn't see these realistic paintings, but the fake Ajur girl who stayed behind to serve him could see them clearly. Mo Gue, who was now a skinny primary school student, also saw the paintings. He was very impressed by the youth called Yalan. He couldn't help but admire him for being able to draw so well. Riot, who was disguised as a manservant, was also standing outside the crowd. He had become a middle-aged manservant and could only wait in the outer circle. He couldn't go forward. This made Riot very sullen. He also wanted to take a look, What do you mean by taking out these paintings? Dryo asked. The others also looked at Yulin in confusion. Could there be some important discovery in these paintings? Everyone, please take a look. I've marked the time of death and the manner of death on these paintings. Didn't you discover anything from these paintings? Yulin said. Discover what? Could there really be something important hidden in these paintings? Everyone began to study the paintings with all their might, hoping to find something useful from them. However, they couldn't. Apart from the fact that they all died very tragically and most of them died with their eyes open, there was nothing special about them. Seeing that they didn't discover anything, Yulin didn't keep them in suspense. He sorted the paintings into 5 categories. Now, look again. Can you see anything? Yulin said again. What's the difference? Most people didn't understand, but the 2 teachers' eyes widened as if they had seen something unbelievable. Why didn't I think of that? So that's how it is, that's how it is. Dryo slapped his head and said with a vexed expression. Me too. In the end, we still need a student to remind us. The 2 of us have really lost face this time. Bellard smiled bitterly. They were teachers, but they didn't know as much as their students. It was really a dereliction of duty. Teacher, what did you discover? The students asked. Fengwu mixed in with the students and carefully looked at the painting that was divided into 5 parts. The more she looked at it, the stranger she felt. These are metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Fengwu understood what these words were trying to say. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth? Duh. It's really like that. The people on this stack of paintings all died of gold. This one died of earth, and this one died of water. There are also people who died of fire and earth. After being reminded by Fengwu, everyone also realized. They hadn't noticed it before, but now that they thought about it, weren't those people who had died like this? They all died of these 5 methods. Jen, you're so smart. You can even see that. Why can't I see it? And grabbed Fengwu's sleeve, admiring her good friend's cleverness. However, Yanemo's expression was a little ugly, and her gaze was a little unfriendly. Humph, you just want to get Yulin's attention. You little bastard. That's right. Just as Jen said, these people all died of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. If the murderer just wanted to kill, there was no need for him to do so. I suspect that he's probably performing some kind of evil ritual, Yulin said seriously as he looked at everyone. Evil ritual. The 2 teachers also thought of this. Yes, if the murderer just wanted to kill, there was really no need to do so many tricks. And I also discovered something else, Yulin said. When he saw that everyone's gaze had shifted to him, he continued, I discovered that the murderer who killed so many people on the island wasn't very strong. How did you discover this? Yanemo couldn't help but ask. Does everyone remember the day that student Jen was attacked? That day, student Jen said that she was taking a bath in the water and suddenly felt very sleepy. When she was attacked, she couldn't summon any strength in her body. I thought it was very strange at the time, so I returned to the scene to check again. Sure enough, I found some clues. What did you discover? Everyone was curious. I discovered that there was a kind of night substance on the ground. If I hadn't gone there early, the liquid would have probably disappeared. You're saying that someone drugged Jen, and that's why she felt weak in her limbs. These students weren't stupid, and they quickly grasped the main point. Yes, that's exactly what I meant. I extracted some of the liquid's composition and discovered that it was a kind of medicinal liquid extracted from herbs. As long as this medicinal liquid is exposed to the air and inhaled into a person's body, the person will lose all strength in their body. Then, they will gradually lose consciousness and be at the mercy of others. She really was drugged. Everyone exclaimed. They didn't expect that someone would actually drug Jen. They originally thought that Jen was too frightened and became an ordinary person after losing her strength. Moreover, she was a girl and didn't have much strength, so she couldn't resist. It turned out that this was the truth. That's why I said that the murderer wasn't very strong. He might not even have much strength. If that person really had the strength to control others from afar, why would he need to drug Jen before committing the murder? He could just crush her with his strength. It had to be said that Yalan's words made some sense. If he really had the strength, why would he go through the trouble of drugging Jen? That means that the murderer might not necessarily be a man. It might be a woman. Someone in the crowd muttered softly. When that person said that, everyone suddenly understood. That's right. A person with average strength who needed to be drugged to kill someone. Who said that it had to be a man? It was possible that it was a woman. With that thought, everyone's expressions changed as they looked at the people around them. Everyone looked like a homicidal demon hiding in the crowd. With this direction in mind, everyone already had a sketch of the so-called homicidal demon in their hearts. It could be considered an improvement in investigating homicidal demons. Chapter 319. This time, the meeting lasted for a long time. Everyone discussed for a full 2 hours before returning to their rooms to rest. When Fengwu returned to her room, Ming Shi, Ajur, and the others quickly rushed over. The meeting outside was over, but they still had to continue. That's right. What that Yalan guy said makes sense. Ajur shared Yalan's reasoning with him. It does make some sense, but it's not entirely correct, Ming Shi said after a moment of thought. Is there a problem with his reasoning? Riot, who had turned into a middle-aged servant, looked at Ming Shi in confusion. Emogui and Fengwu sat on stools and looked at Ming Shi. The ones with the best brains among them were undoubtedly Ming Shi and Ajur. Ming Shi was a deep thinker, while Ajur was more straightforward. If there was one person who could see through the plans of a mastermind, it was undoubtedly Ming Shi. Senior, tell us. Did you discover something? Emogui asked impatiently. I did discover something. Ming Shi nodded with a smile. Although his face was plain and unremarkable, his aura that couldn't be ignored hadn't changed in the slightest. Yalan said that the mastermind wasn't strong, but I don't think so. Has anyone thought of the question? Why is Xiao Wu the only one alive after so many people were killed? Why? The group of curious people blinked. I don't believe that he let Fengwu live because of a miscalculation. He's killed so many people without making a single mistake. With such precise calculations, Fengwu is still alive. That can only mean one thing. He intentionally let Fengwu live. But why? He killed so many people, but spared Fengwu's life. Could it be that the mastermind has something to do with Xiao Wu's identity? Is that why he couldn't bear to kill her? Ajur couldn't help but guess. Riot and Emogui nodded, thinking that Ajur's words made sense. Fengwu blinked her large eyes and looked at Ming Shi curiously. Ming Shi shook his head under everyone's gaze. No, the mastermind didn't let Fengwu live for such a simple reason. What other reason could there be? Could it be that the mastermind was secretly in love with the original Jen? That's why he couldn't kill her. Emogui exclaimed. Ming Shi and the others looked at him indifferently, as if to say that he was overthinking things. He wanted Fengwu to live because he wanted to obtain a piece of testimony. Ming Shi didn't keep them in suspense and directly stated his reasoning. A piece of testimony. Ajur thought for a moment and immediately understood what Ming Shi was trying to say. You're saying that the mastermind deliberately used such a crude method to kill Xiao Wu so that he could obtain Xiao Wu's testimony and lead the people outside to the evidence of the drugging. What? So that's how it is. That's too scheming. Emogui hadn't thought of such a reason at all and was quite shocked. That person really is terrifying, Riot said. That's not right. Think about it. Among the people outside, I think only Yalan has some brains. With the others' brains, who knows how long it would take for them to figure out the drugging. If even Yalan was overlooked, wouldn't that be a waste of the mastermind's plan? Emogui had interacted with the people outside for so many days and was confident that he had seen through their true nature, except for the mastermind who had hidden himself extremely well. He believed that none of the others were exceptionally smart. Even Yolan was just a little clever. It won't be a waste. Even if Yolan didn't think of it, someone will remind him at the right time. Ajur didn't believe that the mastermind would let their plan fail. Well said, Ming. She nodded in agreement. Does anyone else have any discoveries? If so, let's think about it together, Ming. She said. Mo Gue and Riot exchanged glances and shook their heads in embarrassment. They had already tried their best, but they hadn't discovered anything amiss. The castle was so big, and they didn't have the ability to do anything. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to find clues left behind by the mastermind in such a large castle. They couldn't ask others for help. After all, they weren't the enemy's targets. I found something, the Fengwu girl unexpectedly said. She looked seriously at Ming Shi and said, Xiao Wu, what did you find? Everyone was curious as to what Fengwu could find. She spent most of her free time cooped up in her room and rarely went out. Whenever she went out, she would be with everyone. Would she have a chance to look for clues? Fengwu stood up and walked to the dresser on the wall. She opened the drawer and gestured for everyone to go over. Ming Shi and the others walked over. They looked at Fengwu and then at the open drawer. There was nothing inside except for some girls' cosmetics. What was so strange about that? Fengwu picked up a box of cosmetics and held it in her hand. Is there something wrong with this? Ajur took the cosmetics from Fengwu's hand and spun it around in his hand. He opened it and looked at it a few times, but didn't find anything wrong. Look here, this symbol. Fengwu turned the box over and pointed at a flower and butterfly symbol. Isn't it normal for girls to have this kind of symbol on their cosmetics? Only you little girls would like flowers and butterflies, Mo Gue said nonchalantly after taking a look. Even Ming Shi, who had always been sharp, couldn't see anything unusual about this pattern. This is Butterfly Love Flowers Cosmetics. Butterfly Love Flowers Cosmetics disappeared 100 years ago because everyone who knew how to make them died. Butterfly Love Flower no longer exists in this world, Fengwu said expressionlessly. You're saying that this brand of cosmetics stopped being sold 100 years ago? Mo Gue was shocked. It's also possible that someone in Yunemo's family just happened to know how to make these cosmetics and made them specifically for Yunemo's family to use, Riot said. There had been cases like this in other countries before. A family that specialized in fine wine had been massacred. That family's fine wine could no longer be bought outside. Everyone thought that the wine had been lost until someone discovered it later. It turned out that the family still had an heir, but they didn't open the store anymore. They only made wine for one person. Who knew if Butterfly Love Flower was in the same situation? This is a precious item. Many girls have this kind of cosmetics. I asked those girls and they said that it was Yunemo's family business. She gave the cosmetics to everyone. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.